Williams in motion, play action for Daniels. Backside pressure. Down he goes, back at the 39. The Bears got there.
Welcome to Sikkim 365 Radio.
And he loads up a long one down the sideline, single coverage. Great reaction by Snead, but it's waved off incomplete on the coverage from Keandre Thomas. Now let's see. Oh, they do say catch.
It's a completed pass.
It's a completion for Snead.
Sikkim 365 Radio is presented by IdealMRI.com. High-quality MRIs for $497 or less. IdealMRI.com. Your health is important, so is your budget.
The catch is made by Amari Cooper, who broke free. Inside the 20, stays in bounds, and is wrestled out at the Eagles' 8-yard line.
The 3 o'clock hour is sponsored by Waco Custom Marketplace. Meats, sweets, Texas treats, and a cut above the rest. 425 Lake Air Drive, Waco.
He wants it all on one play, and he's got it. Beautifully designed. Ben Sims, the tight end, into the end zone for the touchdown.
Here's Paul Catalina and Craig Smoak.
Welcome into Sikkim 365 Radio, 365 Sports. Paul Catalina, Craig Smoak. Smokey's off for the next couple of days, but we bring you through here. Wide open show for a lot of it today for your calls, texts, and emails. But 3:30, John Kurtz, K-Man Radio on Kansas State. 4:30, Mickey Spagnola talks a little Cowboys, and I got to see I saw the first episode of Hard Knocks last night, and for some reason, the most interesting thing to a lot of people was Jerry Jones putting salt on a McGriddle, but there was some really interesting stuff about Dak Prescott, which we'll get into with Mickey Spagnola. But Craig, we are 24 hours here after, more than that, after the Baylor NCAA findings were released, and I find it's not strange. It's what happens every time with everything with this, with the NCAA, but everybody's in a fervor for 24 hours, and then it's just completely over, and now Baylor can finally move on. But I do find it funny that there's so many people who expected fire to rain down from the heavens, and then, you've been waiting 5 years for that.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not really that worried about what people think at this point. I don't care, couldn't care less. The decision was made yesterday, and, I was on with some guys earlier today, and they were like, what was the point of this? With the fact that they came out after all that time and said, well, there's basically nothing we can do. Why did it take, 5 years for them to do that? And I really didn't have an answer to that question. I was like, well, the COVID delay, and they're spread thin, and I mean, they're kind of fighting a few battles right now in the NCAA, so that's part of it. But outside of that, you know what? I don't know why it took 5 years, other than just, I guess, turning over every stone and every leaf and everything that they could to make sure that they got it right. But yeah, it does kind of seem absurd when you look at it in hindsight, that they took all that time to basically say, we can't do anything.
Yeah.
I mean, that's wild, and I hadn't really thought about that. It's like, you'd think they would have probably realized that, I don't know, 3 years into the investigation, 4, 5 even, but, it is what it is. So like I said, people are going to have their opinions. People who wanted to see them get, just completely hammered. Well, it's an opinion, of course, but that's not what the rules say. That's not what the laws that the NCAA is playing by says. So I understand the backlash by some, but there's a lot of people that are relieved. I think the people over on Baylor's campus right now are extremely relieved, just that this is a door that they can close now. Not necessarily on the work that was done or the people that were involved on the victim side of things. Obviously, they don't want to pretend like, oh, okay, well, we're done with you now. But it's in terms of, having this hanging over their heads, having to address it in recruiting, Dave Aranda having to talk about it with prospective families, all the things that they would have to go over because of, what was in the news cycle or what other schools were saying in recruiting. And we know for a fact there were some schools that were doing that. I'm thinking of one right now that, whatever. But, just to have that behind them at this point, it's got to be a massive weight off their shoulders.
So moving forward, and I brought it up because, look, Baylor's not a story in the NCAA anymore. It's over. But in the aftermath, and we've seen 3 massive cases, which I think people wanted to see some sort of, raising to the ground of some institutions. North Carolina's academic scandal, Penn State's Sandusky scandal, and Baylor's sexual assault scandal, all of which were terrible and egregious in different regards and should never happen. But it's exposed the NCAA for what it is, and it's why the NCAA will have new governance now. I'm wondering what that really means as far as discipline goes. I wonder what that means as far as championship goes. I wonder what that means as far as everything goes, because if you had to list what works for the NCAA right now, the men's basketball tournament. Yep. Can you do a second one?
Can I name a
second thing? Can you name a
second
thing that they do well?
What are the other championships that don't get nearly as much money or eyeballs? Like the softball tournament is successful in Oklahoma City, but that. But no, nothing else outside of the men's basketball tournament. And, if you were paying close enough attention to this story and not just, seeing a salacious headline every few months or something like that, especially early on. I mean, so much of what really ramped the heat up was that you just had attorneys throwing out every allegation, and then the media would take it and just present it as though it was complete fact. Never mind the fact that it was an allegation in a lawsuit intended to be salacious. They're just like, what? Factual, bam, put it on ESPN. They just turned the heat up so hard early on that, you had no choice but to just, see what was being talked about and go oh my God, that's awful. Without even really having any idea of what was going on. So if you took the common person who didn't really dive into the details and they just saw what was on Outside the Lines every day for about 3 months, or what was in Texas Monthly, they'd say, oh yeah, it's atrocious, burn it all down. But if you actually look at what's able to be done and what's not, as we've said a few times now, then you would have realized, based on the cases you just mentioned, those kind of set the table for there not to be really much of anything for the NCAA to do, because they tried to do something with Penn State. Penn State said, nuh-uh, this is out of your control. We'll lawyer up. They did. NCAA backed away, totally lost that case. North Carolina, I'll tell you right now, guarantee you Baylor looked at the North Carolina case, talked with some of the North Carolina people, and that was a basis for also why we got the result we did yesterday. So, yeah, the high-profile cases that you're talking about have been high-profile, but in the end, they've been cases that the NCAA really has no jurisdiction or control over. So to answer your question, I don't know what is going to be in their jurisdiction with their whole what's the phrase called? The
governance, reconstitution.
Re-governance. But I don't think it's going to apply to the teams that have been affected by it, quite honestly. Only if they, let's say a Baylor were to remain at like a D2 level, or not remain, but were to go to a D2 level, only that way do I think it really matters what the NCAA does, because I'm starting to believe more and more that they're not going to have much control over anything when it comes to Division I football programs and specifically the power conferences. I just don't see how there's a relationship there that's a strong one or even a necessary one for the people involved that aren't with the NCAA. We know the NCAA needs these schools and these teams. I don't know how much these schools and teams need the NCAA outside of the softball tournament and the basketball, that kind of stuff. But football-wise, I don't know why you're feeling like you're going to be dealing with them too much in the next few years.
I wonder, would it be better? You mentioned having a college football czar.
Yeah, years ago.
A lot of times. I mean, you talk about that a lot, and I like that idea. I like running college football separate from everything else. I also think they should run. Almost every sport should be separate of everything else. Like maybe you can.
Well, if you did it that way, you wouldn't have the weight sets they had at the women's tournament the way that it was, and you wouldn't have maybe oversights in other areas if you did have more of a dedicated person who loves that sport involved in the planning and the staging and all of that. Because clearly, if you had some former softball players, and I keep saying it was the women's basketball tournament, but if you would have had some former players involved or some former coaches, they're not allowing that to happen. They're not allowing that weight room to look like that. If you had some softball coaches involved in the softball tournament, they're not going to allow anything to not be on the up and up. So maybe some more of that is needed, some actual insight from the people who are on the ground and aren't just involved in the setting up of,
Well, I mean, look, and for a term that's used in pro sports, well, and it's used in conference. Why is the NCAA, why is there not a commissioner of college baseball and a commissioner of Olympic sports and a commissioner of, and that way, and look, I don't know how you have to reorganize it based on money and non-revenues and all of that stuff. But the bottom line is that right now the way it's run is, they're admitting it's not working. And you're going to see, if there's anything else pending that's going to come, before the re-governance, it's something they've probably determined 6 months ago and have been reluctant to release, kind of like Baylor. Because I can't, to me, this reads like something they figured out probably a little bit while back, and then they had their meeting, and then they just held on to it for a few months.
Yeah,
because it was released on August 11th. It wasn't like on August 10th. They're like, all right, finally made a decision. We're going to release it tomorrow. They've had it for a while.
Yeah, all that. That's yesterday, man. And,
but my point being is that nothing's coming out with the NCAA anytime soon, other than new governance. Right. So anything is going to come out. So it's already been determined. So whatever. I don't know who else is pending, realistically, right now.
I mean, there's the Arizona State stuff and
Kansas and
Kansas.
But I don't know. I don't know now if you even want to get into that without the new governance structure. And then if you have a new governance, what happens to them? But does it make sense to have people dedicated to one sport as opposed to investigating things across all sports or running things across all sports, and where you have maybe an overarching NCAA as the organization, but it's run individually, compartmentalized?
Yeah, maybe, but I don't care. That's for them to figure out. They've had, we don't need to solve their problems for them, because radio hosts and bloggers and writers, and we've tried to, at different points, give the NCAA a clue or a cue or a heads up or a, hey, maybe this would be a good idea. And I don't think they've ever listened to any of it. I don't think they're going to start now. They're weaker than they ever have been. I think the writing's on the wall for that organization, and I don't think they have the allies that they once had. So I don't know enough to predict like their ultimate downfall in a timeline of that, but I definitely don't think that they're going to be. And look, hey, it's all on TV or whatever. So 5 years from now, check in on this show, hopefully, and maybe you go like, "Nuh-uh, see, you're wrong. The NCAA is still around." Okay, maybe that'll be the case. But if I had to put money on it, I'm not banking. I mean, I'm banking on them being around, but I'm not banking on them mattering when it comes to the conversations we're having 5 years from now. I think they'll matter in the basketball tournament, and they'll matter in some other things that we barely talk about. But in terms of like power conferences and the national championship game and all of that, they'll be there in name only, really. I mean, I think the power people are going to be the ones really running the show here in the future.
Well, and look, with realignment happening like it did, just under a month ago, and Texas and Oklahoma leaving, and everything that happened, I mean, it was right at a time where the NCAA was already talking about redoing this. I wonder how much that maybe accelerated their timeline, because there's more universities out there with questions than answers. Texas and Oklahoma got answers. The SEC's got answers. The Big Ten probably has answers, because they're not sitting around waiting, but the Pac-12's got nothing but questions. The Big 12's got nothing but questions. The ACC probably has nothing but questions, to varying levels of degrees. So it begs the question of, like, okay, what do we have to do governance-wise to make sure that, look, while this is probably still going to happen and reorganizations will happen, they can't happen like this anymore, where it's just, when did this happen? Nobody told me anything. Like, there should be, maybe more of a process.
Yeah, I mean, I'm with you. Like, I don't know what else to say on the NCAA, really. Like, I just don't believe in them. I don't think that they do a good job. I think they're stretched too thin. I think they're not going to be all that relevant in 5 years in terms of football. I think they obviously need a lot of rules changes, but I don't know, like, sure, I mean, yeah, they need better processes. I think that's obvious, but again, that's for them to figure out, and we'll see their big convention or whatever, their little Zoom meetings they're going to do, and reorganize or whatever the case may be, and good luck to them on that. But as far as the NCAA goes, I couldn't care about them as far as I could throw them after having to worry about them for the last 6 years. After yesterday, I don't need to worry about them anymore. So good luck to you in the future, and hopefully we're not having to cover too many stories that directly involve them anymore, because we sure as hell have for the last 6 years, and glad that that's now over with.
Yeah, and it's just been each step of the way, you kind of lose. I didn't think I could lose more respect for them than I had, and every time I kind of do. It's just. I
mean, we could kick them all day long, but I'm sure there's good people that work there, and some of them are probably a bit hand-tied. But I mean, it is what it is, and that decision was made yesterday, and glad to have it behind us.
Yeah. To the chat now. Let's see. Only the A5 won't be part of the NCAA, or all 130 FBS level schools. I think the Autonomy 5, Craig, like you said, they've been calling themselves the Autonomy 5 for a decade now. So they've already been making this move.
Yeah, I mean, before the Oklahoma, Texas stuff, I mean, Mac Rhodes was using that term, the Baylor AD. And I remember having to actually ask him, like, what is A5? What is A5 you keep talking about? Because I was so used to P5. And he explained it was the Autonomy 5. And I remember that clicking a little box in my head of like, that's interesting. That's not really something they've said a lot of. It almost sounds like a discussion they've been having. And during that time period, and then even afterwards, up until the Texas-Oklahoma thing, Mac Rhodes, had even made comments about the lack of, governance and clarity and steadfastness with which the NCAA operated, and he sounded like he was not much of a proponent anymore, and he had actually acknowledged that, there's talks, there's discussion, there's momentum that the big schools, the Power 5 schools, could break away. I mean, he said that on our very radio show months ago, and even alluded to it a couple times. We've heard other schools, other presidents, other ADs allude to similar, or at least express their dissatisfaction and follow up by saying that maybe there needs to be something else in place. So, I mean, again, I think we're headed that way. I think they're going to have the control, and they'll be able to self-govern all the football schools. Now, who's in, who's out? SEC will be in, Big Ten will be in, and then, if it stays the way that it is, the Pac-12 would be in and the ACC would be in. But, I mean, what do those conferences look like by the time all this actually does change, and when does it change? I mean, probably over the next 5 years as these granted rights come up with everybody but the ACC. But, I mean, I think all the clues have been there. I mean, listen to Greg Sankey talk about them, for God's sakes. I mean, you don't need any more clarity into his thought process in regards to that organization, than him just flat out saying that, they're flawed and they take too long on cases and they're not really much need, quite frankly. I mean, he basically said that. So, for anybody to act like they would be surprised by the notion that the big schools or the Power Fives or whatever are wanting to maybe do something a little bit different, you just haven't been paying attention to what they've all been saying, because they've all been pretty much pointing in that direction now for at least a couple years, if not longer. Yeah,
it's quite interesting to me, like how these tariffs kind of sneak up on people, but they've been out there and they've been doing it, and the whole, like, the NIL thing that took, they knew they lost. I mean, that's like, you kind of knew then, like, once the NCAA lost the O'Bannon lawsuit, like, it was probably over the way that they thought of themselves. But they didn't do anything about it. They don't do it, and so now they're getting something where, like, maybe let's invent something where you don't have to go to court every 6 months. Like, that's maybe should be the first goal. Like, let's come up with something where you don't have to go to court every 6 months.
Yeah, I don't know, man. I don't know.
So,
yeah, I don't know. I think I've said everything I can say about the NCAA at this point. Like, yeah, it needs to change. Yeah, they don't need to be in power. Yeah, I don't think they're going to be in power. Yeah, they take too long. Like, yep, all that. And we'll see what happens next. But yeah, they're what they are. Yeah. All right, we'll take a break right here. We come back at 3:30. We've got John Kurtz. He's with K-Man Radio. He'll talk K-State. Kind of curious, we had Kevin Lockett on right after the, kind of the bomb drop. But after all this has gone down, where does K-State feel like they are right now? In the last couple of weeks, where have they been? We've tried to look in on different schools. Tomorrow, we'll look in on Clemson and Utah and I believe Stanford. I'm hoping. There's not a lot of... Craig, does it surprise you that there's not a lot of beat writers that cover Stanford football? Yeah, I guess a little bit. I mean, they're just the same as any other football program out there, so I'd expect them to have a handful of guys.
It's only like 5 in the directory, 4, maybe,
Yeah, I mean, there's probably, I'm sure, local TV people too. You got to throw them in there, and I mean, there's not really. I guess Baylor's group of people has grown pretty rapidly over the last couple of years. So, yeah, I mean, maybe that's a bit small. It's definitely smaller than Baylor's press corps and definitely the other ones we see around Big 12 media days. I don't know. It's more like TCU's media corps. TCU's probably got a Stanford-type media corps. I mean, they've got a couple of newspaper writers and maybe a couple sites, but not many people know.
Yeah, it's still surprising me. It's just a big area. I know it's not a... But anyway, it surprised me because I was trying to find one, and I have only limited options as far as, who's good and who's in the know. But when we come back, we'll talk a little Kansas State with John Kurtz. This is Sikkim 365 Radio.
Since its inception, Pickup Outfitters has remained politically neutral. We love trucks of every persuasion, not just red and blue ones. But people keep asking us where we stand, and for this one time, we're going to break our neutrality. We oppose any government intervention or legislation to end truck nudity. We believe in the American right to drive nude vehicles. We think it's disgusting, we fight it every place we can, and we want to end it, but we want to end it the right way, peaceably. Therefore, we call on Congress and President Biden to respect the rights of truck owners. Our founding fathers didn't own a truck, but if they did, I bet they would have put a bed cover and running boards on their truck. The right to keep and bear your truck the way you want is fundamental to the fabric of this nation, and we believe in that right. So we urge you to come and take it at Pickup Outfitters, 220 Lake Air Drive in Waco. On the web at createacommotion.com.
At Ideal MRI, we feel blessed to be a part of the Waco community. We're a small family business right here in Central Texas, and our goal is to bring down the cost of healthcare while maintaining high quality. At times like this, the cost of healthcare has never been more important, and unfortunately, significant illnesses and injuries still occur. That's why Ideal MRI is open and here to serve you through the difficult time. We offer premium MRIs just like a hospital with state-of-the-art technology and specialists, but you'll pay less. Sometimes thousands of dollars less, whether you're using insurance or not. At Ideal MRI, we accept most insurance and there are no hidden costs, even offering financing if that's needed. Everything included in the price, and you'll not get something as a surprise in the mail later on. If you need an MRI, ask your doctor about Ideal MRI. They'll know. You can schedule an appointment safely from home online in minutes at idealmri.com or give us a call, 833-IDEAL-MRI. Ideal MRI BetUSI.com.
Life is back on, sports bettors, and BetUS has your NBA, NHL, Major League Baseball, UFC, PGA, and yes, NFL betting lines up for their 27th year and live betting on all of it. Log into BetUS.com or call 800-792-3887. That's 800-79-BETUS. BetUS for 125% bonuses with promo code SICK'EM125. Customer service pros are ready to get your phone, social, and online sports betting kickoff started now. Play with the proven mainstay in the industry. BetUS. You bet, you win, you get paid. BetUS.com. Use promo code SICK'EM125.
It's time to fire up the grill, heat up the oven, or get that deep fryer going to enjoy the top quality products at Waco Custom Marketplace. Order 30-pound sacks of live crawfish by 6 on Wednesday. Pick up on Friday afternoon after 2 or Saturday. Enjoy the weekend. 30-pound sacks of live crawfish available right now for $4.25 a pound. Find all the crawfish boil ingredients you need, including red beef potatoes, sausage, corn cobbettes, and Louisiana boil seasoning. Make your order for live crawfish by Wednesday at 6. Pick up on Friday after 2 or all day Saturday, and enjoy the weekend. Waco Custom Marketplace, your home for fresh baked kolache, cinnamon rolls every day. Butcher shop to cut your steaks the way you want. Fresh seafood, summer sausage, boudin, house cured and smoked bacon, spices, seasoning, soup mixes, and more, and weekly gift boxes for any occasion. Waco Custom Marketplace, 425 Lake Air Drive in Waco, or WacoCustomMarketplace.com.
Welcome back to Sikkim 365 Radio. Are you a Sikkim 365 superfan? Then try out our premium subscriptions at Sikkim365.com.
Back here on Sikkim 365 Radio, Craig Smoak, Paul Catalina, efforting our next guests. Be talking some college football, getting a look at another school in the Big 12. I believe we're going to be talking some K-State here in a moment. They're in a similar position to the other remaining 7 schools in the Big 12, not really knowing what the future looks like beyond next year and technically the next 4 or 5 years, but I think we have them now. So
we do. John Kurtz, K-Man Radio, joins us now. And John, Kansas State in all this, we talked to Kevin Lockett a couple weeks ago, and and his just get his view on where Kansas State remains as a power player in a power conference. But for fans and people that you talk to, where's been the mindset in Manhattan since the Texas and Oklahoma news dropped?
Yeah, I think it's just been a lot of angst and unease. I mean, there's just nobody is very settled right now, and unfortunately, I think that's going to continue on into the future for a while. Because I think everybody understands the gravity of the whole situation, right? Very quickly, you realize how much the rug could be pulled out from under you, and everything that everybody holds dear around here could be in jeopardy. I mean, it's a university that right now I think is trying to figure out how exactly to deal with what is happening, the changing dynamics of colleges. K-State's been declining in enrollment slightly, but ever since 2014, they have a president who is, lame duck seems like such a harsh term, but he's retiring here at the end of the year. So they're in the process of finding a new university president. So there's just a lot of transition from a leadership standpoint going on there as well. You're looking around like, all right, well, what happens if we're trying to figure this out, adapt, and now we're going to lose some of the front door access to the school, which would be playing in a Power 5 football conference. And think about the economy of Manhattan that's already been hit pretty hard by not having full attendance last year, obviously with COVID. And I think everybody just started going to the worst case scenario in the worst place with all of that stuff. So it moved very quickly there from the anger initially with Texas and Oklahoma from what had happened. And now it's like, hey, do we have a place here? Do we have a seat at the table? And I'm sure folks in Waco can relate to some of this. I mean, let's just be honest. Like, K-State has been the third winningest program in the Big 12, tied for third over the last decade, but that doesn't really mean anything, unfortunately. I mean, college football is anything but a meritocracy. I mean, why are folks in, for instance, South Carolina fans right now, they're safe. They've got a seat at the table. They can chant SEC as loudly as they want to, and they have not been as good a football program as Baylor or K-State here in recent history. So, unfortunately, that's just not the way it works. And I think everybody could pretty quickly figure out, all right, well, there's rumors about Kansas to the Big Ten. There's rumors about Iowa State to the Big Ten. We've got rumors about West Virginia to the ACC, Oklahoma State, and Texas Tech to the Pac-12. All right, let's do the math here. Where's that leaving K-State? And unfortunately, I'm not sure that there are a ton of options as far as that's concerned. And so K-State internally, if you talk to people inside the athletic department in the program, they're certainly preaching Big 12 solidarity pretty hard right now. I think outwardly doing so more than some other places across the league, just because they do feel like that's probably their best option. But I would still contend that most people believe, and I would believe, that the best case scenario, now this can still happen with Big 12 solidarity, but the best case scenario would be somehow linking up with the Pac-12, whether that is a chunk of 4 teams going out there, whether that is a merger between both leagues. I think that's the only way you can stay anywhere near that $37 million figure that's been the payout for the Big 12 here. So I still view that as the best case scenario, certainly better than just the Big 12 expanding and taking some AAC teams. But even then, Gene Taylor, K-State's athletic director, recently was telling me, hey, who's to say that Houston, a Cincinnati, like schools like that can't come in, get Power 5 resources, grow even bigger? Central Florida, for instance, could be a sleeping giant. And then the next time TV contracts come around, there'd be streaming players in the game. It could look totally different, and maybe you've only taken a hit for a couple years financially, as you're also, kind of supplementing that with Texas and Oklahoma buyout money. So a lot of scenarios, I think, being thrown out there. But like everybody else, the short answer really is there's just a lot of unease right now based on what the circumstances are. Yeah,
tell us about it. We got a lot of college football fans listening that they want to hear what's the next move, right? Hey, who's the next team to go where, and then how does that? And it's all just been kind of a guessing game really since the Texas-Oklahoma story. So going back to that, the few days prior, the two of us, we were at Big 12 Media Days. Everything was just cool and calm, no drama. Bob Bowlesby was confident. And then, days later, boom, Texas and Oklahoma, via the Brett Zorneman article, get exposed in their behind-the-scenes dealings to move the SEC. What was your initial reaction just when you saw that story and then, the subsequent fallout from that, all the way up to, Bob Bowlesby, obviously, putting on some big boy pants about a week ago and going right at ESPN. What have you just made from the start to the point where we are now?
Well, it's wild. It's funny you bring up Big 12 Media Days, because I look back on that very fondly now. I was also there, and it felt great because, there was none of this going on. It was the first real event. It felt like, to me, where you're back in person, seeing all the media folks. It just felt normal, right? There was finally a sense of normalcy coming out of COVID. And boy, what a utopia that was, because 6 days later, it just all blew up. And I will never forget. You have these moments in your career, and just if you're a fan that you'll remember forever. One of them for me is actually the day that the story broke, pulling into the station here. I think it came out at about 2:30 Central Time, and it was probably closer to 3 by about the time I was pulling in the parking lot. And I had a text from somebody in a group text that typically is not centered around sports. And I just see a tweet that had been sent to me about Texas and Oklahoma leaving. They were like, hey, Kurtz, what's up with this? And I was like, whoa, hold up, what? And so, you throw out everything you had prepared for the show that day, and that obviously turned into our lives, for the next couple of weeks. But look, it's been crazy. I think, like everybody else, it's disappointing to see this happen from Oklahoma's standpoint, but what can you do but throw up your hands and say, look, there's all this talk of Texas and Oklahoma subsidizing the conference, right? And it's annoying, and you hear that, but there is some reality to it. But Oklahoma's been the team and the school that has competitively subsidized the league. Because they're the ones actually making the college football playoff. They win the league 6 times, 14 of the 25 Big 12 championships that have been crowned since the league started in 1996. So it's like, hey, man, you guys have earned it. If this is what you really want to do and you think this is going to elevate you to the next step, there's an element of that to me, of just throwing my hands up and be like, all right, look, you guys go do it. But Texas, so much unearned arrogance compared it to Oklahoma and Texas leaving. Feels like you see a couple of guys on their yachts and you're walking past, obviously jealous of both. You wish that you could be both of those guys, and you're not going to be particularly fond of either one, but at least Oklahoma's the guy that built his company from the ground up. Blood, sweat, and tears went into that thing, where Texas is just riding through on the millions of dollars they inherited from daddy. So that's where a lot of the anger comes in, and you start going that route with Texas. I've seen this idea that Texas feels like they need a more exciting sell for their home games. Nobody wants to show up to see K-State, Baylor, Iowa State roll into town and play those games. And you look and say, well, the league was more exciting when Texas A&M, Nebraska, Colorado, et cetera, were in town, and you guys ran them off and now decided this wasn't good enough. So, I've gone through all of those phases. And look, I cheered Bob Bowlesby as hard as anybody when he sent the cease and desist to ESPN and did what he did. Because how long have we been hearing about the Big 12 has no backbone? Bob Bowlesby has no backbone. They're just going to be reactive and sit back. That was finally a proactive move when you have nothing to lose. You might as well go guns a-blazing. Frankly, I found it kind of disappointing that he decided to put a public end, a ceasefire on what was happening in the public between the two sides, because it's like, what do you have to lose at this point? I really don't think there is very much. Is ESPN going to be really interested in giving you a good TV contract anyway the next time you need to come to the table with them? And if you really have that damning evidence, I would rather just continue to see the barbs go back and forth, especially somebody who hosts a talk show and a YouTube channel and needs content, right? But anyway, I was happy with the way that he handled that. I'm glad that that's the route that they're going. And now I think the message that I've been just trying to convey to everybody around here is like, everybody does want answers. Everybody wants a theory. What's the breaking news? Who's going to go where? And Gene Taylor has been stressing it to me. I talked to Max Olson from The Athletic. I know you guys have talked to him recently. He's been stressing this. Like, it just feels like now things have died down a little bit and there will be some time to calculate what the next move is going to be. And everybody's just going to kind of have to sit here and deal with the unfortunate reality of not having a certain future. And that probably hurts recruiting more than anything else, other than just people's feelings right now. But that's a whole different conversation.
Well, John, this is what's different this time was that this all happened in the dark of night, with Texas and Oklahoma. The last time the Big 12 fell apart, Nebraska and A&M, even though it was one year and then the other, were very verbal about their beefs. I mean, like, it wasn't like there was no surprise, like when they finally just, I mean, I guess it's kind of surprising, but eventually it was like, well, we've had enough, we're not going to take it anymore, and left. This one was 1 week ago, like everybody's happy and good, and you're dancing around at AT&T Stadium, and it's like, what now? Nobody said anything to us about anything else, and so I think that's why it's so different now, is because it happened so fast before, but there was a lot of lead time. This time, no lead time. Nobody has had any time to react.
Yeah, I mean, it's a great point, and honestly, one of the most fascinating elements of this whole story is the fact that this was going on for 6+ months. I mean, that was one thing Max Olson really reiterated to me, and I know he's as sore stuffed as about anybody in the Big 12, and I think the belief is that this was probably even longer than the 6-month timeline that had been floated out there for Texas and Oklahoma to be working on this. And how, in 2021, do you keep a story that massive with implications and tentacles that reach so far under wraps without anybody finding out? Especially, how leaky is Texas? Everything leaks there. They have a lot of very good and talented reporters. That's certainly a part of it, with the Austin media market, but also, you just have a lot of people that like to talk there, right? A lot of people with money, a lot of donors, a lot of people that want to feel like they're very involved at Texas, and they get chatty. So I just, that part of it floors me that it stayed under wraps for that long. And it sounds like Oklahoma State may have been the only place that had just a teeny tiny inkling and maybe a little bit of lead time on this and finding out before everybody else did. But you're exactly right about why this has been such a shock. Because look, if you would have told everybody, hey, at Big 12 Media Days, if you took a straw poll, like within the next 3 years, will Texas and Oklahoma leave the conference? You would probably get, I would imagine that'd be pretty split, if not the majority of the people saying, yeah, I mean, that's a very real possibility. But nobody expected it to happen right now. I think you just expected that it would have been a year or two on down the road. And so that's been a part of, I don't know if it's like the stages of grief or whatever that everybody's going through, but that certainly impacted it and sped up that timeline because it was all so sudden. I think the only real thing that has to happen here, right, and the perfect way to encapsulate all of this, the way we will find out about how this started, when it started, what the first moment was, and what the timeline was, is we will get a 30 for 30 because, of course, it has to be ESPN to divulge all the details on this story, right?
Well, I mean, they've got all the main sources. So, yeah, they got to be the ones to put that together. But, yeah, that will be no doubt a 30 for 30 or an HBO doc or something here in the next few years, no doubt about it. John, there are some political tie-ins that schools have. Like a few years back when the Big 12 was going through this, obviously Baylor was a part of, getting involved in the Texas politics to keep their spot. Oklahoma State, obviously, in that relationship with Oklahoma has come into play at times. Is there anything existing as far as the government there in Kansas and the schools and the way they're governed that would have K-State, going along with a Kansas, or is it just every man for himself? And if so, where do you think K-State fits in this? I think every school fan base has an idea of where they would like to see their school go to, but does K-State have a place where they would feel, I guess, like they would fit in if there is a change that has to be made?
Yeah, to answer the first part of that, I think the only real tangible thing that exists on that front is there is supposed to be a heads up given to the Board of Regents if a school is to negotiate with another conference.
Okay.
And so I know that's been brought up with the Kansas to the Big Ten rumors, which I think are very, very flimsy at this point. But that if that were going to be official, that they would have to give some kind of formal notice to the Board of Regents. Don't believe that there's anything really tying the two schools together. I mean, I think obviously they'd like to keep both of them together if they can. But in the end, when it comes down to it, if you're the Kansas Board of Regents and you're looking at it and saying, all right, well, K-State may get left behind, but Kansas could go to a major conference, what's better for the state, having one Power 5 school or zero? Right. I mean, the answer is going to be one. I think that's the unfortunate reality. And Kansas definitely does have more in the way of options, at least in the way that I view it, based on, what you hear around here. But I don't think the crazy part about the climate here is that I think a lot of Kansas fans and the general tone around there, and it's been set by some of the media, is that they feel like look, they'll be fine. It's a shoo-in. If they want to be in the Big Ten, eventually they're going to be in the Big Ten. In the words of Lee Corso, not so fast, my friend. I don't think it's that. I think there's a non-zero chance that they can be in the Big Ten, but I don't think basketball really matters that much. Stuart Mandel made a great point with the numbers where he boiled it down to, hey, like Big 12 basketball basically is worth $25 million worth. And even if you're going to give Kansas all of that, then that's still have to pay out for a Big Ten team. So you add them to the Big Ten. Now all of a sudden you're splitting the pot an extra way and people are making less money. So I think that's just a harsh reality for Kansas, even though they have that AAU status. And also Kansas 10 years ago had a program that was coming right off of the Mark Mangino era where they went to the Orange Bowl over a 5-year period. They averaged 8 wins per season. Now they've gone through a decade of maybe the worst FBS football we've ever seen played. So that's an anchor really dragging them down. So I think it'll be very interesting how that plays out. As far as K-State goes, I think there would be an outside chance that they could be included in a 14 package in the Pac-12. If it's going to be something like Tech, Oklahoma State, K-State, and then I don't know if it comes down to TCU, Baylor, how all that works out. I know the obvious hurdles there that people talk about with the Pac-12 and TCU and Baylor. Being small religious institutions. But I still think it's a long shot that would ever happen for K-State to be included in a group like that. I think your best hope has to be some kind of full-time merger eventually on down the road between the Big 12 and the Pac-12. Maybe it's, hey, for the next 3 or 4 years, it's a scheduling alliance. You really bleed Oklahoma and Texas dry, get all the money that you can out of them, and then hope at the end of that the Pac-12 is willing to do something more significant. I think that could be an option. But as I said, K-State's really preaching Big 12 solidarity because I think they feel like that is going to be the most realistic option, that everybody does stay together. You get all the money you can from Oklahoma and Texas. Hope that it winds up with some kind of joint deal with the Pac-12 and the landscape changing there. But if not, you go add a couple of teams and see if you can grow them up, and then the streaming dynamics change things and you can earn more money down the road. So not the greatest of options, but really that's kind of the same boat that we're all in, unfortunately, right now.
John, on the field, before we let you go, how confident are you in the Wildcats to maybe surprise some people in the Big 12 this year, especially given that Skylar Howard's back, the young quarterback got to play quite a bit last year. So at that position, which derailed them last year when Skylar Howard went down, they should be set to go, and they've got playmakers like Deuce Vaughn in the field as well.
Yeah, I think the feel around here, there's a lot of optimism, and in particular about the offense. To me, it's almost the opposite of what you would have expected when Chris Kleiman were hired. You would have told me, like, hey, in year 3, would you expect more optimism around the offense or the defense? I would think, well, Kleiman's a defensive guy. North Dakota State, kind of a smash mouth brand of football. You don't think of a really exciting offense. I'd be like, yeah, defense, of course. But it really is flip-flop based on where their personnel's at. Skylar Thompson being back makes a huge, huge difference. That guy's a 6th-year senior. He's been around forever. All this talk about him spending the last year with his injury, he would sit up with the coaches up in the box and was trying to learn the game from that perspective. So they just rave about command of the offense, how he's looking. He's healed up. I think he's totally good to go. And actually, they feel great about Will Howard too, who was the kid who got thrown in as a true freshman, no spring ball. I literally saw him last spring working out at Manhattan High School, the same place I was trying to get a workout in. That's how much he got thrown into the fire last season, but he's had a great offseason, and they may find a role for him even with Skylar playing as a starting quarterback. Deuce Vaughn is a coach's dream. He could not have a more coachable guy and a better leader in addition to all the talent that he has, so he will be a star. They have a lot of pieces on offense, an experienced offensive line that's very deep. Malik Knowles is an all Big 12 talent at receiver if he can ever stay healthy. Daniel Amaterbebe, whose brother just got taken to the NFL draft. He's a transfer that K-State picked up at tight end that I think will have a big year. So the offense should be good. Defensively, they lost Wyatt Hubert to the NFL draft. He was their biggest playmaker. I'm not sure they have anybody with that kind of upper-end talent on the defense right now, and the linebackers in particular are a massive question mark. Should be pretty good in the secondary. Julius Brents is a transfer corner they got from Iowa, who I think is going to be an NFL player and will be a stud. That will be the strength of the defense. The front seven, there are a lot of questions there. And you look at the schedule, man, it's tricky. They open the season with Stanford and Arlington. And then after that, they have to play Nevada. And I think there's a legitimate debate about which game will actually be tougher out of those two teams. Nevada's been pretty salty. And then they start Big 12 play with Oklahoma, Oklahoma State, and Iowa State as the first three games. So it's a front-loaded schedule. If things don't come together early, that could really derail the way that the season goes. But to me, the expectation would be 7 to 8 wins right now for this team. That's kind of the feeling I have. And honestly, if they can get back to an 8-win season, which is where they were at under Chris Kleiman 2 years ago, and it's only non-COVID season, I think that would be great and a really good sign to where things are going.
John Kurtz, K-Man Radio in Manhattan that covers Kansas State. And John, we certainly appreciate it. Have fun on your show today. Thanks for hopping on.
Absolutely. Anytime, guys. Thanks.
All right, that's John Kurtz. That segment will be up in the podcast here shortly if you missed any of it. When we come back, we wrap up this 4 o'clock hour. This is Sikkim 365 Radio. The First National Bank of Central Texas. 5 locations right here at home: Waco, Woodward, Hewitt, China Spring, Mart, and Hillsboro. Familiar faces making local decisions. Here to help you, your family, and your business, whether it's great times or tough times. All of us need a bank we can count on. Great people with great technology dedicated to their customers and helping our area grow. And safe banking in person or use their online and mobile apps. Convenient drive-thrus and ATMs at all locations. They've got things like their First mobile app where you can do your banking wherever you are, check balances, make transfers, pay bills, transfer funds, and first deposit and deposit check using your smartphone camera. Just snap a picture on the front and back of your check, choose your account, and deposit. That's the First National Bank of Central Texas, 5 locations right here at home.
Make this the summer sales event is going on now at Allen Samuels with the all-new 2021 Jeep Grand Cherokee L. Now arriving and in stock. This beautiful, rugged third-row seat carries the prestigious Jeep heritage. The 2021 Jeep Grand Cherokee Laredo or Limited. You pick. Have total values of $2,750 or 0% for 48 months, plus $1,000 in bonus cash. Allen Samuels.
Come by. Let's be friends.
See dealer for details. All offers have credit requirements.
Boots add protection. Good boots help you climb better and move forward faster. And when your son or daughter steps into the boots of a U.S. Army officer, they also learn how to lead. In these boots, they'll gain more confidence with expert training in one of more than 150 occupational specialties. In these boots, they'll stand a little taller and lead a team with diverse backgrounds and areas of expertise to successfully accomplish whatever challenge comes next. In these boots, they'll earn respect with valuable experience from day one that will give them solid footing for success into the future. Highly qualified candidates who earn a spot on our team can receive comprehensive health care coverage, college tuition assistance, and a bonus of up to $40,000. See all the things your son or daughter can achieve in our boots at GoArmy.com. U.S. Army Waco Recruiting Company, 254-598-8131 or 254-776-1543.
Hey, this is Bryce Petty, former starting quarterback and 2-time Big 12 champion, and I know firsthand the importance of being in top shape both on and off the field. So listen up, men. If you're feeling beat down day in and day out and looking for that high-performance edge that separates the men from the boys, then look no further than the Petty Clinic Low T in Waco. Petty Clinic is a comprehensive men's healthcare clinic with an atmosphere catering to men. Board-certified Dr. Kent Petty has a special interest in offering the highest quality medical care to men of all ages. Some of the services offered include screening and treatment for low testosterone or thyroid, infertility, high blood pressure, diabetes, high cholesterol, sleep apnea, while offering comprehensive wellness exams and complete men's health lab panels. High performance men, remember, it's not just a Petty thing. This is Bryce Petty, encouraging you to reach out and Google search Petty Clinic Low T or go to pettycliniclowt.com and get your complimentary lab screening today.
Riverbend Liquor and Wine, Lakeshore Drive at North 19th Street in Waco, is a hidden gem. They've got a great selection of spirits, wine, and the most extensive selection of craft beer in Waco in their gorgeous walk-in fridge. And they have an amazing array of high-end bourbons like Pinhook, Weller, Buffalo Trace, Brush Creek, Hotel, Garrison Brothers, Thomas S. Moore, Hooten Young, and Bardstown. Great customer service and a convenient and speedy drive-through window. Riverbend Liquor and Wine. Find out more on Facebook and Instagram.
How did Edward Jones become one of the biggest financial service companies in the world? By not acting that way. Financial strategies, one-on-one advice, it's a big difference. And that's why Brad Wilson, your Edward Jones financial advisor, makes sense of investing. Experience the difference for yourself. Brad Wilson, 250 Sharon Drive in Woodway, 254-776-4337. Edward Jones, member SIPC.
This is Sikkim 365 Radio. Text us at 254-339-1122. The Sikkim 365 Radio text line is sponsored by Riverbend Liquor and Wine, with the most extensive variety of craft beer in Waco. A hidden gem on Lakeshore Drive and 19th Street.
Welcome back, Sikkim 365 Radio, 365 Sports. Paul, Catalina, Craig Smoak here in studio, and Smokey's off the next couple of days. I know most of you will miss him terribly, but he'll be back on Monday. And Craig, with all the news in college athletics we've had, I don't know if there's been a year where I've been so excited for games to actually start.
Yeah, I mean, I'm ready for that too. It's been a long wait, so yeah, absolutely ready for it.
Yeah, I want to see what this season. I want to see if there's any psychological impact of realignment on the players, which I don't think there will be this year.
I mean, RJ Sneed got asked about this the other day about is realignment a conversation? Why would he care?
Yeah.
Why? Okay, if you're a freshman, I can understand you kind of caring, but why would you care too? I mean, I think that's such an overblown storyline, and not that maybe it's not even an overblown storyline. Maybe it's barely even being talked about. But if it is being talked about, I just, for Baylor at least, I don't see the big deal, because RJ Sneed is playing in his last season no matter what. Mm-hmm. Treston Ebner's playing in his last season no matter what. Tyquan Thornton's playing in his last season no matter what. Terrell Bernard, same. Jalen Petrie, same. So, I mean, for all their best players practically, none of them are even going to be here past next year. Some of them may be here for another year, but unless Texas and Oklahoma pull something dramatic, which they very well could over the next year, they're still playing in the Big 12 in 2 years. So, I mean, yeah, we don't, I mean, the freshmen now could still be playing in the Big 12 for all we know. Mm-hmm. We don't, as it stands right now, they will be. As it stands right now, the freshmen in the Big 12 will play Texas and Oklahoma throughout their careers, unless, something changes, and I think we all expect it to change at some point. I don't think any of us are going to, be of the belief that Oklahoma and Texas are hanging around for 4 more seasons. I just can't imagine that happening. But hey, for these players who are gearing up for this final run, I mean, it's about this final run. It's not about any of the other stuff that they have no control over. And I think there's a lot of cliches that are used by coaches in sports, and everybody kind of says the same things. They just put a different name to it, and they put a different twist on it, but it's all basically the same exact message. It's just their little flair they attach to it. But there are certain things that you can pick up if you listen to enough coaches and players talk. And one thing that I've tried to kind of add to my own life is just Bryles actually used to phrase it as clear it, and others have the same message of just, you control what you can control. You don't worry about stuff that you have absolutely no say in or no, there's no way you can change it. I mean, no matter what you do, no player can do anything, and change what's going to happen. Mm. So why worry about it? Yeah. You know what I mean? So why would you waste the energy on something that you have absolutely no control over? And that's something that I try to remember in my own life and apply it sometimes. So I think that's probably where most of them are. And after hearing RJ Sneed talk and hearing Tyquan Thornton talk and hearing other players, they don't seem to care at all, dude. They really could not care less about this story.
I would think that the only thing we'll see in the next couple of years is honestly some sort of, gamesmanship on a coach, bulletin board kind of thing where, these guys think they're better than you. They don't want to play you. They don't want to,
It's going to be the fans more than anybody else. It's going to be the fans, and then maybe some of the stadium operators have fun with like a graphic on the screen or something like that poke fun at Oklahoma or Texas or whatever. But, I mean, beyond that, it's going to be a bunch of boos and hisses and, people complaining and wanting to trash them on their way out. But outside of that, I mean, I think the players, for them, it'll be – they just want to beat those teams anyways. I mean, they know it's a big deal to beat Oklahoma and Texas, so that's what they'll look to do. And that's what you have to do to get to your ultimate goal. So that's the goal of anybody for beginners anyways. Now you add maybe a little fuel to it, but I think for the players, though, and even the coaches, at some point Dave Aranda will have to worry about this, and maybe not even worry, but at some point Dave Aranda will have to sit down and figure some things out. And I know he and Mack Rhoades have already had conversations about the shifting landscape, but also, he was asked about it a few days ago, and he was like, well, we walked in the locker room and nobody really, I think there's a couple guys maybe talking about it sort of, but I walked over to one of them and was like, hey, what do you guys think? And it was a non-issue. And so knowing how he is, it's a non-issue for him too. I can guarantee you, he does not care about Oklahoma and Texas leaving the Big 12 right now. It is not a concern of his. And again, there's nothing he can do about it. So
the only thing he has to worry about is eventually when his recruiting part of it comes in and they have to answer those questions about the future. But again, he can't answer those questions either.
But here's the thing is, if you're Dave Aranda, I don't think he's on the hot seat by any means, but I think if they went out and they won 3 games this year, then yeah, he would be. I mean, because that would just be, quite frankly, inexcusable. To have a poor season like that based on all the changes that you've made. And as I've said many times, you can't go out and win 2 or 3 games this year and then go and replace the whole offensive staff again. You can't do that. You can't go out and replace the whole defensive staff. And if you had to do that, then something went just horrifically wrong this year based on how strong they expect their defense to be. So, he's got to worry about himself. He's got to worry about Dave Aranda. He's got to worry about winning enough games to keep building the program in the image that he wants. So I think one of the last things he's probably worried about at this point is what 2 other schools are doing. And, at some point he will have to worry about it in recruiting, and he'll have to address it. And if they are to announce their full-on exits and they've paid buyouts and, the rights are agreed to and all of that here in a year or so, then yeah, it becomes an actual concern of, okay, now what happens with the conference that we're in? But right now, they're still in the conference, and right now, they're still in it for another 4 years. So leave that up to Mack Rhoades and those people. That's whose job it is to figure all this out.
Yeah. But yeah, I wonder, all right, who do you think the first stadium to be will play bye to one of these teams?
I hope all of them. I mean, screw them, and I'm not taking a shot at Oklahoma or Texas, but that's college football. That's what I would expect. I would expect this if, Auburn and Georgia announced they were leaving the SEC, which I know is totally unrealistic, but do I expect the fans then, if that were to happen in Tuscaloosa and Gainesville and other places to, Starkville, College Station, to do something similar like that? Yeah, absolutely. That's college football. So, sure, I expect some creative departments to get creative. But then again, do you do that and then you play them again next year and then the year after that and then the year after that and then they're finally gone? So that little bit of uncertainty, if we knew they were leaving after this year, like they were officially leaving, which again is totally not official, then yeah, I think you'd see it really ramped up. But then again, you might be doing this for the next 4 years, for all we know right now.
Yeah.
But yeah, the crowds are going to be the biggest thing with the vitriol and all of that, and that's college football. That's what I would expect.
All right, when we come back, Sick 365 Radio, the 4 o'clock hour sees Mickey Spagnola, DallasCowboys.com, and Craig Smoak's Off the Radar. This is Sick 365 Radio.
Richard Carr, Buick GMC Cadillac, got a lot of great deals going on right now at Richard Carr. It's the summer savings event, and they want to get you back on the road in a vehicle, either brand new or used, that will have you feeling safe, have you feeling comfortable, and have you having a lot of fun out there on the roadways. Right now, they've got a lot of offers on Cadillacs. Cadillac, with its responsive power, advanced technology, and exceptional agility all combined into one vehicle, it'll bring a smile to your face on Every driving a Richard Carr Cadillac, they'll find the right model for you, whether it's a smooth and powerful CT4 sedan starting at $33,395 or the XT4, XT5, or XT6 lineup of SUVs in the style and size to fit your lifestyle. You can also get back on the road with the space, safety, and luxury of a Buick. Right now, well-qualified buyers get 0% financing for 72 months on most 2021 Buick SUVs. And as I mentioned at the start, they're loaded with premium pre-owned cars and trucks. All of them go through a 172-point inspection before ever even hitting the lot. With dozens of lenders, Richard Carr says yes when others say no. 100% credit approval is always the goal. And Richard Carr is also, for those of you here in the Waco, Central Texas area, your local hometown dealership. So give them a chance to earn your business with great prices, free oil changes on new cars and trucks, and superior service after the sale. You can come by and take a test drive or give them a call, and they can set up a test drive and bring it to you. That's right. Make it more comfortable for you if you can't get out of the house, Delta variant or whatever the reason may be. They can bring that test drive to you because folks still need to buy cars even if they can't get over to the dealership. It's the summer savings event going on all month at Richard Carr, and Richard Carr is owned, operated, and run by loyal and proud Baylor Bears.
Y'all listen up. Let me tell you something about group meals from Rudy's Barbecue. It's got all you need for all the folks you gotta feed, smoked meat, sides, and more. There's everything down to the tablecloth, just like the one that you see at the store. At a bridal shower, it's better than flowers. In a long distance meeting, it'll pass the hours. It'll feed all the cousins at a family function. It's better than potluck at a church luncheon. Next time you need to feed 10 or more, call and order a Rudy's group meal.
Next in line.
Hi, Mark Stewart here with Bird Colgan Ford. Score big with Midway Football and Ford Trucks. It's time to catch football fever and find the perfect Ford truck for your next tailgating party. The Ford F-150 has been America's #1 selling truck for 44 years, and Bird Colgan Ford has the perfect truck for you to drive to your next football game. Enjoy the game. Enjoy the ride. Enjoy the many truck choices at Bird Colgan Ford. Visit us anytime at bkford.com, making buying your next Ford simple at BK Ford.
Do you or your kids get nervous about going to the dentist? Stonewood Dental, Dr. Steve Childress, he can help.
I've spent a career taking care of patients who as children had bad experiences, and now they're adults that hate going to the dentist. If I get a kid at 3 years old and they come every 6 months and it's a happy experience, it's normal for them. Now they have an accident at 6 or 7 or 8 at school. Now they have a broken tooth or a trauma, and they have to come here. They're used to lights, they're used to water in their mouth, they're used to experience, they already trust us. It's amazing what we can do with that kid without it being a negative thing. But if I see a 6 or 7 or 8 year old that's never been to the dentist, and now they have a trauma or an unfortunate unexpected toothache, it's harder to do that for that kid and it not be somewhat of a negative experience. So bottom line is I try to teach kids and adults and teenagers and everybody the way I'd want my family treated, which is where it's a necessary part of life. You just take care of it. It doesn't have to be that big a deal.
Learn more, stonewood-dental.com.
With so many companies and policies out there, it gets so confusing shopping for insurance, and I never know if I'm getting the policy that's right for me. Luckily, I met the team at the Niche Group Insurance Agency. With the Niche Group, you can go to one company and get access to coverage options from many insurance carriers, and you get to speak to a real person about your specific coverage needs. With the Niche Group, I know I'm getting the right coverage at the right price. If you need insurance, talk to the experts at the Niche Group at 1-800-258-8302.
Southwest Sports Medicine and Orthopedics, the team physician of Baylor Athletics. Our doctors specialize in the diagnosis and treatment of any and all sports-related injuries. Celebrating over a decade of service in Central Texas, our doctors are equipped to handle a wide range of issues, whether it's your foot or ankle, orthopedic spine care, your hand or wrist, knee and shoulder pain, or if you're in need of our arthritis or total joint clinic. Come see us at the new Baylor Scott and White Ted and Sue Getterman Sports and Orthopedic Center. Trusted doctors at Baylor Trust, Southwest Sports Medicine and Orthopedics. Our goal is to get you back in the game.
From the first workout to the last practice, sports is an incredible challenge. Hi, this is Dan Engel with the First National Bank of Central Texas, and we're proud to support each athlete, every parent, and our educators. From families, small businesses, to the biggest industry, we're here to help. With remarkable products like instant issue debit cards free at all of our banking centers, we've got banking ideas that fuel big dreams. The First National Bank of Central Texas. Familiar faces making local decisions.
Member FDIC, Equal Housing Lender.
Welcome back to Sikkim 365 Radio.
And Mayers for the win for Baylor from 30. Good hold, good snap. The kick is through. Baylor breaks its losing streak. And it's a yellow rush on the field, 32-31.
The 4 o'clock hour is sponsored by Boozer's Jewelers, the wedding ring store, specializing in custom jewelry and repair, all in-house. Here's Paul Catalina and Craig Smoak.
Welcome back in to Sikkim 365 Radio and 365 Sports. Paul Catalina, Craig Smoak. David Smoak is off today. Let's go to the phones and text 254-339-1122. That is the BetUS caller line. Use promo code SICKM125 at BetUS for 125% bonus. Let's go to Matt McBrayer. Matt, you're on Sikkim 365 Radio. Thanks for your call.
Hey, fellas. What's going on today?
Hey, Matt.
Good. Listen, I just want to know kind of where you think Baylor's going to land, especially after the whole NCAA thing. I mean, gosh, it's been, 6 years or 7 years since they started saying, oh, well, we're going to punish you guys. Just give us some time to investigate. Yeah, I know a lot of people have had kids and gotten married, and I finished not only my undergraduate degree, but finished seminary at Baylor by the time they finished the investigation. So that tells you a little something about the NCAA and their expediency regarding a lot of investigations. Listen, I just want to know what you guys think about, Baylor as a whole is a really attractive program, I think, and I'd love to hear where you guys think we'll land, whether it'll be, I think that Pac-20 thing is just kind of a pipe dream, but it seems to make some sense in a way. If you don't know what that is, it's like they would divide, if they divide the Pac-12 into four groups of 5 teams, and the Big 12 would join that, the remaining 8. And then it would just be a mega conference like none other, and you'd have one section play a whole nother section in their own section every season. So just want to get your thoughts on that.
All right, Matt, thanks for your call. I actually think that the Pac-20 thing is, while it might seem like a pipe dream, I think that's probably the best option they have for TV money. Is that because it would encapsulate so many different wide variety of schools. And so you could say, like, this is a huge conference. It's the western half of the country, essentially, that cares about it. There's going to be matchups that you're not going to see all the time. There's, 4 or 5 team pods means that year to year your scheduling is going to be kind of wild. So, I could get behind that one. I think that one, I like that one the best for, as far as if I'm a TV network, that to me makes the most sense money-wise.
Yeah, that is one that's definitely of interest. I don't know where that's actually heading, the whole Pac-12 thing. That's kind of cooled down over the last few days. We haven't heard, it was weird the first week of realignment with Oklahoma and Texas. Every day after that for about a week straight, there was something involved in the Big Ten and what they were doing. There was something involved in the Pac-12 and what they were doing. There was something involved in the ACC and what they were doing. And now it's been about 5 days. I haven't seen a single new thing reported. So, this whole thing has cooled off immensely, although there still obviously remains the conversations. For Baylor, I'll say as far as the investigation goes, that's one big black mark that you can take away from them now or take off of their record that – maybe if you were some of these other conferences you were looking around, the whole Baptist institution and the Baptist basis, that's not going to go away. So if that was a hindrance for somebody like the Pac-12, well, that's going to continue to be a hindrance. But if there did happen to be a conference out there that was looking at Baylor and saying, well, really good basketball program on both the men's and women's, really good football program at times. If they just had some dadgum consistency for like more than 2 years. I think they'd be a really good football program. They've just changed coaches so many times in the last decade that it's been hard to just even have an identity that lasts more than 2 seasons. But I think they're an attractive school. I think they're unique in that they are a private institution. Some people may look at that as a hindrance. I look at that as actually some uniqueness and not being exactly like everybody else and just being state school U and all of that. But I know not everybody looks at that favorably, but they're not going to change that either. So if it's a hindrance, it's just going to be a hindrance, and they're not going to change who they are to get into a conference. So I think not having that investigation out there any longer, and the fact that it's now been tied up and then all the loose ends have been tied, I think that only benefits them moving forward. Is it enough to propel them into a conference? I don't know, because again, I don't know what these conferences are really even looking for. You know what I mean? Like if you're looking for a school that's going to come in and is going to be competitive in pretty much every sport, it's going to have some money behind it, but maybe not massive TV ratings. Although Baylor actually, depending on the matchup, does pretty okay in some of their games. That hasn't, their small size hasn't been a hindrance as long as the matchups are pretty large, but. I do think it makes them a much more attractive school. Let's say that. It makes them a much more attractive candidate to not have that hanging over their heads and dragging out for several more years. I mean, now it's a clean slate, so to speak, so long as they don't screw up again, and I'm pretty confident in the leadership they have now that won't be the case. So I'd love to narrow it down, but I just don't know. I could see them in the ACC as a great fit. I could see them in the Pac-12 as a fit. I could see them in the whatever conference as a fit. I think they could fit anywhere. I just don't know who's actually interested.
Yeah. And to the NCAA question, I think what the NCAA thing now is, look, the member institutions know. I mean, they're privy to more information than, John Q. Fan is. But obviously this report's online, but Baylor can now say to anybody if Cal wants to know what Baylor's done to solve their problem, they can be like, here you go. Yeah. Here's the whole thing. Here's what's going to happen. I mean, so that's what that does. But the NCAA not hanging over them is good in that, now you're not going to have a team that's going to be, on a bowl ban the first 2 years in the league. Right. That does you no good.
Yeah, I mean, it's huge for them, just regardless, just knowing what their future looks like in terms of what they're going to have to deal with scholarships or recruiting visits and all of that. And I like I said, I do think it's a positive for them in this realignment shuffle, and that this is now out of the way. It's been closed. It's been cleared up, and now they can move forward as an institution. So I think it makes them more attractive enough to want to be poached by some of these other conferences. I don't know about that just yet, and I hear all the reasons for why all these other schools make sense in all these other places. But we just had the K-State guy on, and he's even saying, that Kansas Big Ten stuff, I'm not really buying that. And I was saying that last week. I was just like, that sounds more like wishful thinking, sort of like the West Virginia ACC stuff. There's just not enough to actually chew on that makes you believe that that's anywhere near happening. But who knows? I mean, in this world we're living in, obviously tomorrow we could hear that West Virginia and Kansas are backdoor into the Big Ten or something like that. But, I mean, if you look at Baylor as an athletics program, which is what this is basically all based around, they're obviously not Oklahoma and Texas, but I'd say they're more attractive than K-State is. I'd say they're more attractive than TCU is. I'd say they're more attractive than Kansas is. I think they're probably, West Virginia's got a much larger fan base, but as far as competitive, they're in that same vicinity. Oklahoma State, I think, would be more attractive. Texas Tech, I think Texas Tech's got the size, but they don't have the success over Baylor. So I think the only ones that are definitively better schools to choose than Baylor would be probably Oklahoma State and maybe Iowa State right now. And I'm only saying that because their football program's good. And that's the only reason why, because they're not better in basketball. They're not better in most any other sport. They're just right now they're better in football. And that's really it. And they have, and obviously Baylor's going to be outsized by a lot of these schools outside of TCU, who they're larger than. But athletically, I think they stack up as well as anybody. So if that's what you're looking for, then they should be one of the top candidates at the top of the list from the Big 12, in my opinion.
Yeah, I agree with you. And the thing is that anytime you hear this rumor about, Kansas is a great fit here, or West Virginia's a great fit here, you're really only talking geography
or one sport.
Yeah, one sport. But and you're also just talking geography.
Yeah, it's mostly geography.
And as we've seen, geography is probably not going to matter much in this. Not that Austin is all that far away from a lot of these places, but look, there. 20 years ago, the thought of a team from Austin going to Knoxville, to play midweek volleyball games would be like, no. I mean, that'd be once in a while, kind of a thing, but not every year you're going to do that. And so that the geography doesn't matter anymore. I mean, it doesn't. Like West Virginia proves that geography doesn't matter. And if the Big 12 and the Pac-12 merged and West Virginia had to go play half their games on the West Coast, they'd be fine with it. They're going to do it. I mean, it's going to suck. It's an annoyance, but those things will all come out in the wash.
I don't know. I think it matters. I don't think it matters from the standpoint of it would prevent them from doing it. But why would it not prevent them from doing it? Because they have no other choice.
Yeah.
If they had any choice that was closer, guess which one they would pick? They'd pick the one closer. So I think that location does matter, and I think you would see it matter a hell of a lot more when we got into baseball season and basketball season, and you're watching the Mountaineers, men and women, on a Tuesday or Wednesday night going to Palo Alto to play a women's basketball game. That's going to matter, and that's going to hurt the fan base because they're not going to be able to swing that on a regular basis. But, again, if it's your only choice, then sure, it doesn't matter because what else are you going to do? You're going to drop down a level and play SFA on a regular basis? Well, that's not going to be worth your while. So, yeah, you're going to go travel cross-country to California if you have to do that, but – it would matter. It would matter as far as road attendance, and it would matter as far as expenses, and it would matter as far as, some other things as well. But yeah, if that's your only choice, then that's the one you'll take. And Matt, do appreciate the call. I wish I could narrow down a better choice for you as far as Baylor and where they would fit in. But really, it's really just a matter of kind of like West Virginia. Who wants them? Because that'll be your answer. Where do they want to go? They want to go to where they're wanted, basically. That's the answer to that question. And I don't know if that's the Pac-12 right now. It doesn't appear to be. ACC, have no idea what they're cooking or planning right now. Big Ten, that's not going to happen. SEC, that's not going to happen. So, one option that's out there is just hanging in there and just letting this thing play out, because I've said a dozen times now at this point over the last month, no one expected or predicted the Oklahoma-Texas thing, and then that totally reset all the pieces on the board, and now we're trying to figure out what the next thing is going to be that's going to reset all those pieces to the board, but that might not happen in the next month. It could happen tomorrow. It might not happen for a year. So until we have a little more clarity on who might actually be looking around on the move, but more importantly, who's actually interested in those teams that might be looking to move, until we know more about that, then it's really hard to say where would make a lot of sense.
Yeah. On the chat, Bo Weevil. Great show, guys. Go Clemson. I would love to see West Virginia in the ACC. They are a football school.
Yeah.
I mean, and they have I know that, lately they've been a little mediocre, but they have a great football tradition. I mean,
I think Neil Brown's a hell of a coach. Yeah. I really like him. I think he's going to have them playing pretty well this year. They're a tough out. I think defensively they should be pretty good. They did, obviously lose a huge piece in Tyke Smith, and that's one of the major of the transfer portal. As a player of that caliber, not transferring because of really any reason other than I just go somewhere better, basically is what it felt like, quite honestly, him going to Georgia. But yeah, I got a lot of respect for West Virginia. They're tough in basketball. They're tough more often than not in football, etc. So them in the ACC, I mean, I know Mountaineer fans, you've been waiting for 3 weeks to hear that news, and I'd love to know, what the ACC's actual opinion is of West Virginia. But as we've seen, they've been through this. They've had this over and over and over again, much like TCU with realignment. So I'm sure some of the fans are used to it, but at the same time, yeah, you'd love just that logical fit 2 weeks ago for the ACC to say, oh, the Big 12's falling apart. Well, West Virginia, come on home. But, yeah, that's not been the case.
Well, yeah. And I can't – it's gone past, but, if the ACC added West Virginia as a full member, they'd have 16 and everything, and Notre Dame, except for foot and everything, and Notre Dame could still be independent, which they're going to stay until the rules make them do it.
Yeah, they have no reason to be anything but independent.
So they have no reason to. I mean, the rules would have to make them do it, and the ACC. I also think that they're not going to if they decide to add schools, like their first 15 phone calls are going to be to Notre Dame going, how about today? How about now?
Yeah,
no?
probably.
How about no?
Yeah, and that's good business because that's the only brand that's going to come in that's going to bring really all that much value. And I've seen West Virginia fans like break down the attendance figures and the alumni bases and how much value they would add. And I think I've seen every fan base for every school who's potentially going to be moving do that to some extent. We've seen the schools themselves do that. There was the great old Kansas graphic from a couple weeks ago about the airport, and how it's being remodeled or whatever. But, everybody's kind of done that to some extent. But it really does seem like, just geographically, it's the natural fit. But there is something preventing it, obviously. And what that is, I don't know. Is that Notre Dame and to be determined on Notre Dame, and they're just going to keep plugging away at trying to get membership or get them as full members until doing anything else? I don't know. I'd love to hear the conversations behind the scenes, though, because there's a lot to figure out. And, look, that's a conference who doesn't have a very good contract right now. And not only do they not have a very good contract, they have a contract that's not that great that doesn't end for 10 more years. It doesn't end any. Actually, I think it's closer to 15. I think it's actually closer. I think it's 2036 maybe. Yeah. So that thing doesn't end for another 15 freaking years. So that's got to get figured out as well. Before too much else happens.
Well, it's hard to renegotiate a contract with 15 years.
Yeah,
left.
you
can do it with 2 or 3. Especially if you if the SEC wanted to renegotiate their TV contract, which they can right now because they can do it. They've got a couple years left on it before it comes up, and that's one of the reasons Oklahoma and Texas joined. But for the ACC and hey, we'd like to renegotiate, and ESPN can say we'll put you on the books for 2034. Mm-hmm. January 1st, 2034. We'll have January 2nd. January 1st is the holiday. So January 2nd, we'll have a conference call. You make sure all your people are ready. Because that's how it's going to be. And so, it's so strange that the ACC of all these conferences has this massive TV deal. But look, they just launched the ACC network 2 years ago, 2019. Yeah. So their thought at the time was, this will get us through, 20 years, and then...
Well, look, it may not be a great deal, but it is a deal that keeps them secure for 15 years. Yeah. They're at least attached to ESPN. The concern for the Big 12 is that their deal runs out soon. The concern for other conferences is their deals come up soon. So at least for the ACC, a saving grace, and maybe why we haven't seen them go crazy as far as realignment goes is because, look, again, they got 15 years left on their TV deal. They don't really... have to do anything. They're locked in, but I also know they don't want to get left behind, and they don't want to run into a situation where all of a sudden Clemson and Florida State are like, hey, why are we carrying all the pails of water around here and everybody else is just drinking from our buckets that we're bringing, and then that's what the Big 12 turned into, and that's what you got to be careful of if you're the ACC, I would think, is just if the payouts get so uneven or Clemson starts to look and they see wow, the Bamas and the Georgias and all them, they were already ahead of us to an extent, but now they're starting to become a speck in the foreground. They're getting then that's when I think you'd see some concern and maybe a little grumbling. But yeah, right now they're locked in, and the biggest wild card of all, we don't know what the SEC's future plans are.
Yeah.
That's the one that caused this whole thing, and that's the one that would likely cause the next wave as well if they intend to do anything else other than what they've already done.
Well, and look, Bob Bowlesby mentioned in the Senate hearing a couple weeks ago that Texas, the schools in Texas represent the 25 million people of their 35 million people footprint, maybe 33 million. So 35 million person footprint. 27 million are here in Texas. 8 million are in the rest of the Big 12. So they're not populous states. All the other conferences have this same problem in that they have 2 or 3 schools that are in massive population centers, and the rest are smaller because that's what America is.
Right.
So again, all of them do.
We only care about what the big cities have to say.
Yeah, but again, if the ACC lost Florida State, Miami, and Clemson, and Miami kind of maybe just a tag along because they're not a big school, but they're in a massive population center, then most of the people who watch the ACC are in Florida. One of the only ACC schools that makes money is Florida State. Or at least that draws eyeballs and gets ratings is Florida State. Florida State and Clemson get get eyeballs, and Clemson just recently. For a long time, you could put Clemson on TV and anything, and at halftime, they could have elected the president, and people still wouldn't have watched it. I mean, like, that's just how it was, because they were not a national brand. They are now, but it takes time to build that. Michael from Clarksburg, West Virginia. You're on Signum 365 Radio on the Bet US caller line. Thanks for your call.
Oh, you're welcome. Thanks for taking my call. Enjoying your guys' show. I just recently started picking it up in the last week and a half to 2 weeks, and got to tell you, it's pretty impressive. You guys do a really nice job.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
A couple things. First off, this Notre Dame stuff. Here's what's bad. The Notre Dame prostituted the Big East years ago by allowing them to play all their non-football games in the Big East. And the ACC has allowed them to do it again. And they've got this grant of rights until, 35? Mm-hmm. There's no way that Notre Dame's going to commit to the ACC with that current contract because they've got them by the kahunas where they don't have to. If they would have been able to force them, say, either you play all your sports in our league or none, and everybody else did the same thing, then Notre Dame would have had to join the conference. By you letting them exploit you, that just lets them stay independent. The second thing is that you take a look at West Virginia, and sure, I'm a homer for West Virginia, just like you guys are with Baylor. And I'm impressed by your basketball program. You look at the TV ratings from ESPN. The year that Geno Smith, we played you guys, the score was both in the 70s in that game. It's one of the highest rated games ever recorded on ESPN. And West Virginia's numbers, even though it's a small state, they've always drawled with Tavon Austin and all those guys, Rich Rod when he was there, they've always drawled the big numbers when it comes to viewers. And you guys hit it right on the nail. We don't want to go to the West Coast. Hell, to be honest with you, we really didn't want to play in the Big 12. But like you said, you got to go where somebody wants you. The ACC snubbed us, and they claimed education. But let's face it, Dean Smith and those guys, they didn't want to come into the Coliseum with our rowdy fans, and especially in the football stadium, because we can compete. Look at the last time we played Clemson. We hung up 70 on them. Now, is it the same Clemson as it is today? Hell no. I mean, Clemson's up there with Alabama. We know that. But I think we're on the right track with Neil Brown. We're having one of the best recruiting classes in football this year, maybe in the history of the school. And if you look at viewers, we're going to compete in football and basketball. We're good in both sports. And, what do you guys think about the situation?
Look, I think you kind of nailed it. Like West Virginia's only problem is that, people have a preconceived notion about what their state is or what their university is and the value there. But I mean, look, they're competitive in damn near everything, and I can't think of the last time that they were genuinely bad for a long stretch. They might have been bad for a minute. So again, they bring value in any conference, and I kind of maybe agree with them about the ACC is that they already, had Virginia Tech and Virginia, and they just felt like, and then they brought in Pittsburgh, but I don't know why they just didn't. It was a good fit for them.
Yeah, I mean, they've just kind of been in the it's almost like they've been stuck in a washing machine, just like tumbling around, like can't quite get to a full stop somewhere, always kind of searching for that spot to make sense. And as you said, yeah, like the Big 12 wasn't the ideal spot either. And you nailed that. I mean, they've always been kind of the outlier, right? As far as geography goes. I mean, Iowa State's kind of a little bit but I mean, like Oklahoma State, Kansas. I mean, they're all sort of that same vicinity. So West Virginia really is like the odd man out already. And now let's add another half of the country to that, and you'll really be the odd man out. So, yeah, I don't think West Virginia fans have any interest in that. But, again, like he said, and we said, if that's the option, that's the one you have to go with. I think, to me as just a college football fan, I think West Virginia is attractive. But these conference commissioners look at things in different ways. They're not looking at it as a passionate fan base or, the Geno Smith or, Tavon Austin or all the great teams. And I remember even going all the way back to Noel Devine, like back in the early 2000s when West Virginia really got on the radar, the Oklahoma Bowl game, and all that stuff. But I have an immense amount of respect for West Virginia, but there's clearly something there to where they have bounced around so much, and there has been so many conferences that it's been like, yeah, it makes a lot of sense, but no thank you. So what that is, I don't know, because it has to be something. Because they have a good-sized school. They do bring in, as you mentioned, like TV ratings on a fairly regular basis. We know they're amongst the most passionate fan bases, and that's saying a lot because there's a lot of passionate fan bases out there. They're competitive in at least something every single year, if not pretty competitive in a lot of things any given year. So, yeah, I don't know what it is. I don't know what it is that's preventing, the ACC in the past or even now from wanting to welcome them in. I guess it must just go back to how much, you can have value, but do you add value to what you're joining? And I think that's where fans and media, we probably get ahead of ourselves a little bit, is that, yeah, you may have success and you may have TV ratings and you may have championships and you may have all these things like Baylor does or West Virginia or whatever. But if you go and you join the ACC, are you really bringing something to the table, or are you just watering it down? Now, you may say, well, there's no way we're watering it down because we've got a good football team, we've got a good basketball team. But that's not what we're talking about. Are the payouts less because you joined? If the payouts are less because you joined, then they probably don't want you because the goal's not to make less money. Now, I've seen people put formulas out there of where I think I've maybe even seen a West Virginia example of where they would potentially add value. But I think that's what it ultimately comes down to.
I mean, they want to do what the SEC is doing right now.
Is it worth bringing in another school if everybody only makes $1 million more every year? Is it worth all that trouble to do it that way? I don't know. But I guarantee you this. If West Virginia could come into any conference and you could add $15 million to everybody's yearly buyout, they would be in a new dadgum conference right now.
Yeah.
And any other school, if there's any other school in the Big 12 that could immediately do that, they'd already have announced the new conference that they're in right now.
Yeah.
But that's the thing is it's all about value. And while you may have value as a brand, you have to add additional value. And I'm not sure that really any of these schools of the 8 do that for any of these other brands out there, quite honestly. I mean, that's why Oklahoma and Texas could make the move they made, because they add value, and they add a lot of value to the SEC, and that's why the SEC would not go out and grab a Baylor or a West Virginia. If they're going to go out and grab anybody else, they're grabbing, guess what, schools that can add value. So they're going to add USC, or they're going to add Oregon, or they're going to add, whoever else. So circling back, I maintain that I think West Virginia's best bet at the ACC is if Notre Dame capitulates. But based on everything I've read, including an article from about 10 days ago on ESPN that was really thorough on Notre Dame and the ACC, it listed all the reasons why it makes absolutely no sense for them to be anything but independent and why they would never want to be anything but independent because, as you pointed out, the ACC basically just said, hey, do whatever you want to do, use us, and then hopefully one day you'll actually love us. But Notre Dame's just like, no, we're going to keep it casual. We like the way it is now. We don't want to fully commit. And that's basically what they've done. They're getting their cake and they're eating it too. And the ACC's begging, let's make this official. And they don't want to do that because it's not in their best interest.
You can't be a major independent in basketball and volleyball. So they needed somebody.
They needed somebody.
Yeah, they needed somebody, and the ACC was all willing. But you can be in football. All right, let's go.
Shout out to the ears though. Neil Brown. I think he's going to do a really good job there.
Yeah. Mike, a Kansas State fan from Fort Collins. You're on the Bet US caller line. Thanks for your call.
Great show, guys. The one word that I have never heard is parity. I got sick every year. Let's just go on and give Oklahoma the crown, and the rest of us will fight for the scraps. I think that the teams that they're considering getting into the Big 12 will make it. I think will make it interesting year after year, and. I also believe that with a rabid fan base, our great facilities and whatnot, if the Big 12 breaks up, I quite frankly think that they would be a good fit for the Pac-12. We've already beaten USC and UCLA twice, and we lost to Oregon in a bowl game, but I think we can be, the Kansas State Wildcats could be very, very competitive in the Pac-12.
Yeah, and Mike, thanks for your phone call. I actually think, like, outside of Kansas, because we don't know how, like, when their program football will get resuscitated, every single school in the Big 12 has shown that they have potential to be good at times.
I think every one of them practically has been a top 10 rated team at some point or another.
Even Kansas with Todd Reesing, but it's
but in the last 20 years for sure, but in the last 10, I think pretty much all of them have been, a top 10 ranked football team or in a BCS game or a CFB game or whatever. CFP has only been Oklahoma, but we know Baylor knocked on that door a couple times, and TCU did knock on that door once as well. But as far as the parity thing goes, I do think, and I think I said this a couple weeks ago when this all first started, the Big 12 actually has a really awesome opportunity here if they are able to move forward together as one. Like, worst case scenario, they stick it out and everybody lands in great spots, and maybe they get a nice chunk of change, over the next few years to tide them over, and then they all go their separate ways. I wouldn't be surprised if that's what happens, but yeah, I mean, the Pac-12, again, value-wise, what does K-State bring to the Pac-12? I don't know that they bring all that much. And I say the same thing about the other Big 12 schools. I mean, outside of probably like Oklahoma State, I don't know that really I don't know that Texas Tech, big fan base, great. The western part of Texas, cool, but does it bring something? You know what I mean? Does it bring more than just a bunch of fans? Because, that's great, but it's ultimately not what matters. So, I think all the Big 12 schools could fit into the Pac-12 or could do well in the Pac-12. I just think the Pac-12's got their nose in the air and is not going to be really welcoming to any of the religious institutions. So sorry, Baylor and TCU, or maybe to just some of the Midwest constituents because, again, the value aspect of it. But going back to the parity thing, and this being an opportunity, depending on what they do, if they do add like a Cincinnati, a BYU, a UCF, and one other, and that's their dream scenario for a lot of fans out there, I think it would create a kind of an interesting league. And yeah, you're right, there would be parity. It wouldn't just be Oklahoma every single year winning the conference, which was part of the problem, was that they weren't challenged nearly enough. But it would be a much more diverse and interesting league, and so maybe that would attract some eyeballs, that there would maybe be a little bit more uncertainty as far as who the champ would be on a year-in, year-out basis. I certainly think those schools can hang. I mean, they're not that far away from hanging right now, and some of them are better than current Big 12 schools, quite frankly, in football. So that is definitely an option that I would think is on the table, and one that if they played their cards right and made the right selections and were freaking innovative for once and ahead of the ball for once, could actually kind of turn into a cool alternative league that's not just all the blue bloods gathered together. But they would have to have foresight and creativity and all of those things, and they have not displayed that they've had any of those marks really whatsoever. So it would take a changing of the brains of those in the Big 12, and we'll see if maybe these recent events have maybe flipped that switch in their heads. But I'm with you. I think the parity would be a nice refreshing change from just the dominance of one school at the top.
Well, and look, if you take out the two schools that threw water on any kind of innovation because they liked the way it was.
Yeah, that's true. They tried to be innovative. You're right. Yeah, I should take that back. And they have tried to do that. And they got shot down by the schools that were simultaneously planning their exits.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
All right, Matt in D.C., and then we break for Mickey Spagnola. Matt, you're on the Bet US caller line. Thanks for your call.
Hey, thanks for taking my call, guys. Man, this realignment thing, gets me going back to one of the callers who said, Notre Dame has to do it, has to fall in line. Notre Dame will never fall in line because they're Notre Dame. They have the biggest brand, I think, probably of all college football because it goes across the world. I mean, from Rome to Alaska, every Catholic is almost a Notre Dame fan. So you have that, billions of people that are your fans. So, and then if it goes to 12-team playoff, all Notre Dame would have to probably do is win 9 to 10 games, and they're in. Probably every year because they want the TV ratings. Right now, if they go 11-1, they're always going to get in. They're in. Even without the ACC. So they're not ever going to go. They'll keep the money. They'll keep getting a bigger contract. With West Virginia, man, I love West Virginia. I love Morgantown. I live with the people. My buddy down the street put a bar in his garage. It's amazing. The problem is with West Virginia, I think it's the smallest population of any state in the country, and I believe so. The school, I'll just say, it's a straight party school. The biggest major at that school is vodka Red Bull. It just is. I'm not talking bad about Morgantown. It's just that's what it is.
Right.
Okay, so that's why the ACC probably won't take them. I hope they stay with us. But for anyone wondering why no one wants to take West Virginia, I just don't think the fan base is that big, and they're just kind of stuck in that pocket. So I hope they stay with us. For our TV viewership, I think we just have to expand what we need. You know, grab the Cincinnati, Ohio's, grab 2 Florida schools. You know, Boise State. I saw article on Heartland College. I don't know if you ever read that about Colorado State possibly. If we can get to Denver, it's like the 7th biggest market. So just look at the TV viewership, look at the new markets, and if we can go into new markets, I mean, that's the thing we can do if we can stay together. I'll take it from here. Thanks.
All right, Matt, thanks for your call. We got to kind of break right now, but yeah,
I would say West Virginia fans, I've seen, they'll tell you that they stretch into the DMV and they stretch into the VA and they stretch, kind of wide out there. Outside, but yeah, you're right. No, that is a hindrance for them, and we have not mentioned, and it's funny because we're talking about a school and a university brand of football, right? And what's one thing we have not mentioned at all? Academics.
Yeah.
Academics. Imagine that comes into play in college. So I think that's a very good point. That is another strength that I think a school like Baylor would have is their academics are pretty high, whereas some others who maybe aren't up to snuff in that regard, yeah, the Pac-12 probably doesn't want you. They probably don't. If you're going to drag down the academic side of things, or if you're going to lessen it, it's kind of like the money thing. Do you add value or do you lessen value? And if you're lessening value, like in the Pac-12, for example, where we know academics are always mentioned at the top of the list, then yeah, you're probably not that attractive of a candidate. So there are factors like that outside of TV ratings and money that absolutely do come into play, and I think you kind of hit it on the head there, Matt. So appreciate the phone call.
All right, Mickey Spagnola's next. This is Sikkim 365 Radio and 365 Sports.
With more than 160,000 alumni worldwide and counting, the Baylor family is growing. And through the university's expanded Baylor alumni program, the family is growing closer. With hundreds of local volunteers planning events in cities and towns around the country, you can gather with fellow Bears no matter where you are. So, get connected, get something started, get involved, and make plans to get together with Baylor alumni. Visit us at baylor.edu/alumni.
Boozers is the wedding ring store and more. If you're ready to get engaged or already married and want to upgrade your wife's ring for a special anniversary, Boozers is the place to go. With the largest selection of premier quality diamond engagement rings and wedding rings in Central Texas. They have 7 cases with over 300 styles of rings from top designers like Natalie Kay. Choose from yellow, white, or rose gold, plus beautiful top quality loose diamonds. With an in-house jewelry, they can also custom make anything you want. Bring in a picture or drawing and let Boozers create your one-of-a-kind pendant or ring. They can even use some of your old gold and diamond jewelry to create something new. At Boozers, you'll find a great selection of quality timepieces, and Boozers is the place for expert watch maintenance and repairs, too. They specialize in expert Rolex watch repair for fine jewelry, watches, custom work, and more. Go to Boozers on Valley Mills and Lake Air Drive in Waco.
Boozers, the wedding ring store and more.
It takes time to reach goals. It's a truth that applies to more than sports. It goes for your financial goals as well. You work hard for your money, and you deserve an investment strategy that lines up with your game plan. And Tom Albers, your Edward Jones financial advisor, can help. If your financial investments aren't putting forth the effort you desire, stop by today for a financial review. Tom Albers, 4301 Lakeshore Drive, 254-776-7605. Edward Jones, member SIPC.
Escape the mundane with the responsive power and exhilarating agility of a new Cadillac from Richard Carr Cadillac. Smile behind the wheel again in the supercharged sophistication of a CT4 or CT5 sedan, or the sporty and spacious XT4, XT5, or XT6 lineup of SUVs. Starting at only $33,395, the Cadillac of your dreams is waiting now at an affordable price at Richard Carr. Test drive from the expansive selection at Richard Carr Cadillac, or let us bring a test drive to you. Go to richardcarcadillac.com to schedule a test drive today.
At Impact Research Institute, we can help you identify if you have non-alcoholic fatty liver disease and measure for liver stiffness or scarring. If you or a loved one has diabetes, high cholesterol, hypertension, obesity, or concerns about your liver health, Impact Research Institute may be able to help by providing liver health screenings quickly at no cost, physician counseling, and opportunities to qualify for clinical trials. Visit us at impactresearchtx.com for more.
Let Camille Johnson Realtors guide you seamlessly through the process of buying your dream home or selling your current one. Commercial, farm and ranch, or residential, Camille Johnson Realtors can smoothly and successfully lead you through any transaction. With a team of 28 experienced agents who are excited about serving you, Camille Johnson Realtors services the entire greater Waco area. If you're in the market to buy or sell, contact Camille Johnson Realtors, 104 Midway Center in Woodway, or find them online at www.camillejohnson.com. Camille Johnson Realtors, elegant, charming, warm. Welcome home.
Welcome back to Sikkim 365 Radio.
And Prescott on the keeper, walks in, touchdown, Dallas.
It's time for our weekly segment with Mickey Spagnola of DallasCowboys.com. Brought to you by the First National Bank of Central Texas, with 5 locations to serve you.
Sikkim 365 Radio on 365 Sports. Our good buddy Mickey Spagnola, who I don't know if he's going to be used to. He's in Phoenix right now. A 70-degree temperature change, it probably feels like to Mickey. But, Mickey, are you sad to leave Oxnard?
Absolutely. Somebody said, "Are you ready to go home?" I said, "Yeah, until I get there." And then on the way home, we stop in Phoenix. But you know what? We're getting a break because it's only like 91 or 92 degrees today. So that ain't bad for 2:30 in the afternoon.
Yeah, not bad. So Mickey, Hard Knocks aired on Sunday or Monday night, and outside of people wanting to, worried about Jerry Jones' assault intake, I think the biggest thing to take away is how driven Dak Prescott is to do even the most mundane things in practice.
No, absolutely, and we know that about him, but I think the general public probably doesn't realize the competitive nature of him. And if him laying on the field when he suffered the dislocation and compound fracture of his ankle and trying to straighten it out on his own before the doctors get here, then I think what you saw of him after he's healthy and sort of PO'd that they were taking him out of practice before he wanted to get taken out of practice. And that's Dak Prescott. He is so committed to what he's doing, and that's another reason why he got the contract he got. Everybody looks at it like, wow, he's not that good. He doesn't deserve that kind of money. But when you have a leader like that, and a guy that is so competitive and so driven to be the best he can be, then you understand why a little bit more of why they gave him that contract.
So we did get a little bit of insight into Dak's injury and some of the conversations behind the scenes, Mickey. And then over the last few days, there's been a lot of hand-wringing about what he is or is not doing. From your standpoint, and you've been out there, your thoughts on them ramping Dak up and taking it easy, I guess, in certain ways to be careful.
Well, they're ramping him up because of the shoulder muscle strain, not because the ankle didn't have anything to do with this. He was moving just fine until he kind of got his arm in a weird angle when he threw a deep pass one day, and he strained the muscle. And it's the muscle that it goes up your back, but there's a sliver of it that goes in underneath your armpit, and that's where it got strained. So they say it's a shoulder, but it's actually underneath. From what I've been told, that injury, that strain usually takes 3 to 4 weeks to heal on its own. And so that's why they pulled him out of practice, and that's why he just started throwing again this week. He threw on Tuesday to Amari Cooper. Cooper was running routes, and they were moving down the field. I think he threw the ball about 30 times. And then yesterday, when they had practice, he took part in the drills that weren't like team, but there was throwing drills, and he threw the ball just fine. He wasn't cutting it loose like throwing 100 miles an hour, but I'd say he was throwing at 70% as a precautionary measure. And then I find out that just because he said he was going to get an MRI, everybody overreacted. Well, it's a recheck. You want to go back and see where the healing process is before you go any further. So that's all the MRI was. It wasn't like, oh, he hurt it again and he's in bad shape. That's not the case at all, and that just got blown out of proportion. And I just saw something on TV. I think it was ESPN, and it's like, why does Dak need an MRI? Well, let's be realistic. You get MRIs to see what kind of progress you're making when you have an injury before they release you and say, okay, you're good to go. So that's what's going on there.
Yeah, Mickey, his story, last year about, he had a second surgery that nobody knew about, and they kept that under wraps. Like, I'm sure that makes people, question about his readiness with the leg. But like you said, the leg's doing fine. The arm's not great right now. But are you confident that he will fully practice next week, or is that maybe more Dak's optimism?
I think that's his optimism, and they'll see. They'll see where he's at. He doesn't have to do anything today. He doesn't have to do anything tomorrow. He'll continue doing his rehab, and the next time the Cowboys practice is Monday. So we'll see where he's at there and see how it progresses. But as they said, it's a process, and you keep ramping up a little. You don't want to go too fast, because guess what? On August 12th, they're not going to win the season opener. That's September 9th. We're talking almost a month away. So that's why they're being very cautious. And some of it is they're protecting him from himself, because if it was up to him, he'd be out there going 100 miles an hour.
Absolutely, yeah, no doubt about that. Mickey, one of my favorite lines was when Leighton Vander Esch was talking to Michael Parsons about, knowing what plays are yours to make. That you're not out there to make every single play on your own. What kind of maturation and just maybe little bits of development have you seen from Parsons going back to, post-draft OTAs to where we are now towards the end of training camp?
Well, here's another guy going 1,000 miles an hour,
right?
And he thinks he should make every tackle. And if he doesn't, he's mad at himself. So you got to love that. When you watch him practice, you understand why they selected him with the 12th pick in the draft. And as I've told people, and I know they get mad at me, I was on him from the beginning. I thought that's who they should have taken. Because you know what? You draft a corner, that doesn't help you stop the run, which they couldn't stop last year. If you draft a offensive lineman, that certainly doesn't help stop the run. But if you draft a guy that is talented as him, and I've quit calling him a linebacker, he's a football player. And you just figure out all the things he can do, put him on the field, and let him do it. If it's playing middle linebacker, trying to play the run, if it's playing strong side linebacker, where you line him up on the line of scrimmage and the offense doesn't know if he's rushing the quarterback or if he's dropping in coverage. You play him at middle linebacker in the nickel, and is he rushing the A gap or the B gap, or is he dropping in coverage? And he can do all those things. I thought the line I love when he ran down a play from behind and Dak Prescott said, S, he's fast, right? And that's the deal with this guy.
Yeah. Mickey, the linebackers overall early on in camp are getting rave reviews, including Jalen Smith so far, right? He had a good practice against the Rams, and he's been the most maybe maligned player in an offseason from the Cowboys in a long time.
Yeah, and all he did was make 152 tackles last year to lead the team in tackles. So he was miscast last year. He's not a weak side linebacker. You want him in the middle, and you want him in the middle on normal downs. You don't want him have to get in coverage because teams will find him, right? You want him going forward. And so far, that's kind of how they're using him. They're not using him on the first nickel. They're using him in base. When he's in the middle, Vander Esch is on the weak side, and Parsons is on the strong side. And that's the way it should have been and needs to be. And yeah, he's active. Let's see though, because they're not tackling yet. This is going to be a good test tomorrow night against the Cardinals team that, by the way, if you remember, and I know it's preseason and who knows how many guys they're going to play, but they rushed for 261 yards against the Cowboys last year. Kyler Murray had 75 of those on his own. So let's see if they can stop the run. It's not all about rushing the quarterback. Sometimes you've got to stop the run before you earn the right to rush the QB.
Hey, Mickey, I definitely want to ask you more about that Arizona game, but before I forget, there was so much of the Hall of Fame ceremonies this past weekend, and I don't know if I think maybe you were on before the whole Jimmy Ring of Honor thing, but I was just curious your thoughts on seeing, Drew Pearson, et cetera, going in this past weekend, the Jimmy Jerry stuff, and just what do you make of all that?
Well, Drew, he waited a long time for this, right? And it's a good thing you didn't play a drinking game with him. Like, you had to take a sip every time he said Pro Football Hall of Fame, right?
Yeah.
But he was so excited to be in. I think he just wanted to make sure everybody understood how important this is to him. And he just kept saying Pro Football Hall of Fame. So between him and Cliff Harris, this was a long time coming, right? Both of them should have been in long before this. But good for him to finally get in, kind of get that chip off his shoulder. And he was disappointed the year before. But you know what you find out, and he expressed this to me one day, however long the wait hurts, when you get in, all that dissolves because you're in the Pro Football Hall of Fame. And as for Jimmy, yeah, I thought he was pretty gracious. He was about as humble as Jimmy can be, right? Said, the reason I got here is because the players, played for me. Well, yeah, but, take credit for you getting those players. And that was one of his best qualities, other than having the pulse of your team, going in against another team and understanding what the other team can and can't do. But his ability to acquire talent, I think, was unmatched in Cowboy history.
Yeah, and Ring of Honor. I don't know when that's going to happen, but it's out there.
Yeah, what Jimmy said.
Yeah, it's out there, Mickey. It's finally out there.
Yeah, and I don't know. I don't think we got a definitive absolutely yes, right? But I think what Jerry said is we don't want to take away from his year, meaning the Hall of Fame year, because you know how they do, right? They pick a game and they come to and present the player his Hall of Fame ring. So now it's a big deal to get a ring. Is it less important than if you get into the Ring of Honor? It's kind of like a downer. So we'll see if it happens this year. I think eventually it happens. But as Jerry said, he didn't want to do anything to detract from his year in the Pro Football Hall of Fame.
All right, Mickey, final thing for you. As you mentioned, the Cardinals game coming up tomorrow night out there in Arizona. Obviously that first preseason game, there's a lot of buzz, and, you'll probably see a little bit more of the starters per se, and then there's the dress rehearsal at the end. With preseason game number 2, what are you looking for? What do you want to see tomorrow night?
I want to see the young guys that they're probably going to give another good chance to play, to prove that they need to make the team. This is an important game for Garrett Gilbert to prove that he's worthy of being the backup quarterback. They've got to figure out who the backup swing tackle is. Is it Ty Nsekhe? Is it Terrence Steele? Josh Ball is out with a high ankle sprain. They don't know when he's going to get back. So it's kind of between those guys right now. And Ty Nsekhe needs to step up and play better for a veteran than he did in the Hall of Fame game. And if all that fails, to me, I ain't messing around this year. If something happens to one of those tackles, Zach Martin goes outside and plays tackle, as he showed you last year that he could do, and Connor McGovern can come in and play guard. And my guess is Connor McGovern can play guard better than any of those backups that can play tackle other than Zach Martin. And then the other thing is who's the backup center? You got to have one. And now they really want Connor Williams to win that job. But he's never played center before. So I imagine you'll get him some snaps with the first team offense to continue going forward. Because if he can do that, not only do you save money against the cap, you end up saving a roster spot on Sunday because you don't have to carry a backup guard and a backup center. They were pretty lucky the previous years because Joe Looney could do both. So keep an eye on that center position when 52 eventually gets in there and see if he gets some snaps with the first team. And then we'll see some more of the backups. I don't know how many of the veterans will play more than a series or two on defense. But some of those young guys have to step up if they want to make this team.
Mickey Spagnola, DallasCowboys.com. Mickey, welcome back to Texas here in a couple days. So
yes, absolutely. We'll be back at. Here's how just romantic our job is, right? They'll play the game. We'll leave right away, and we're going to show up at 4:30 a.m. on Saturday.
Oh, enjoy it, Mickey. Enjoy it. All right.
See you guys.
That's Mickey Spagnola, DallasCowboys.com. Craig Smoak's Off the Radar is next. This is Sikkim 365 Radio. Look, if you're watching our show from around the country and you say, hey, I'd like to move into Waco, Texas, or if you're watching from Waco and say, hey, I've got to move in Waco, Texas, then you need to call my friend Lance Donaldson, the Donaldson family team, brokered by eXp Realty. Lance is a great realtor. He's a great guy. And look, he's going to set you up maybe even with another realtor in his group that can set you up and make a great deal. But what Lance brings to the table is, and what eXp brings to the table is customer service at the highest level. And you're going to need someone in this crazy market, because it is a seller's market right now, to get you the best price for your house, which you'd probably get a great price, and someone who's going to enable you to keep most of that money you might have profited off your old house and put it into a new house and not lose too much money. Lance Donaldson can help you do that. 254-214-3713 or online at lancedonaldson.exprealty.com.
In the market for a quality metal building? Since 1943, Pioneer Steel and Pipe has helped Central Texas residential and commercial customers with metal building design, panel options, building components, and trim options. Pioneer Steel and Pipe's residential line is energy efficient, offers low maintenance, reduces insurance payments, is impact resistant, and carries up to a 45-year limited warranty. In addition, they can also help you find a metal building contractor for your project. Pioneer Steel and Pipe with locations in Waco and Bryan and at pioneersboys.com.
Don Humidor, your home with a 48-foot walk-in humidor with the elite cigar brands from around the world, including the #1 cigar of the year, Aging Room Cuatro Nicaragua. Plus, they have the great brands like Macanudo and Artur Fuente, Rocky Patel, Aston, and so much more. CBD, great for sore muscles, aches and pains, sleep, Vita Dreams, and anxiety, mild depression, general health and wellness. Their staff very knowledgeable on the subject. If anyone is curious about CBD, ask Carol and Ashley. Don Humidor in the Townwest Shopping Center off Valley Mills in Waco.
Life is back on, sports bettors, and BetUS has your NBA, NHL, Major League Baseball, UFC, PGA, and yes, NFL betting lines up for their 27th year and live betting on all of it. Log into BetUS.com or call 800-792-3887. That's 800-79-BETUS. BetUS for 125% bonuses with promo code SICK'EM125. Customer service pros are ready to get your phone, social, and online sports betting kickoff started now. Play with the proven mainstay in the industry. BetUS. You bet, you win, you get paid. BetUS.com. Use promo code SICK'EM125.
At Marco's Pizza, get craveable pizza made the Italian way with dough made from scratch, an original sauce recipe, 3 fresh signature cheeses, and premium toppings you love, served hot and safe. Right now, you can get unlimited medium one-topping pizzas for just $6.99 each. Why stop at just one? Order with your app or at marcos.com for curbside, carryout, or delivery today. Marco's, pizza lovers get it.
Grant Dideker, under the umbrella of Texas Farm Bureau Insurance, McLennan County agent. And you have this umbrella. We mentioned the umbrella of Texas Farm Bureau Insurance, but you serve more than just like home insurance, or you have all sorts of different levels of different things you cover. Yeah. How much does that help?
You know, I talked to a guy today. He has, Allstate on his car, Progressive boat, and, Farmers on his home. So I said, why don't you, do you know your agents? No, I just call the 800 number. Why don't you just let me quote that and we can have it all here. It makes it a lot less complicated for you. He really liked that. So we have auto, home, life, several different brokerage options, classic cars. Got to ride in a 1978 Ferrari one time.
Grant Dideker, Texas Farm Bureau Insurance, McLennan County agent. If someone wants to contact you, just straight on your cell phone?
Yep, 254-265-0442.
Grant Dideker, Texas Farm Bureau Insurance, a McLennan County agent.
Welcome back to Sikkim 365 Radio. It's time for Craig Smoak's Off the Radar.
All right, welcome into Off the Radar here on Sikkim 365 Radio, Sikkim 365 Sports. Craig Smoak, Paul Catalina. David Smoak will be back on Monday. And I just got this for the Baylor fans out there. We got some other stories that are very much non-Baylor related that we'll get to. But Baylor Men's Basketball's foundation elected to the Hall of Fame 5 players from Scott Drew's first 2 recruiting classes who helped the historic resurrection. They're also known, these 5 players, as the foundation. They will be inducted into the Baylor Athletics Hall of Fame as the lone selections for the 2021 class. Paul, this will include Aaron Bruce, Mamadou the Mayor, DN, Henry Dugat, Curtis Geralds, and Kevin Rogers. They will all be inducted, the foundation, those 5 members, into the Baylor Athletics Hall of Fame as the lone selections for 2021. That ceremony will take place on October 29th at the Waco Convention Center. And we'll also recognize the 2020 Hall of Fame class, because obviously last year there was slight interruptions in the usual festivities. But how about that honor? That's pretty cool for those guys.
Yeah, absolutely. And look, I'll tell you, just Scott Drew's been wanting to do something like this for quite some time. And now that they won the national championship, he has the ability to do it, and he's wanted to honor these guys. He's actually also wanted to honor the guys that stayed a lot. He wanted to do something for them, and it was met with some resistance, and I'll leave it at that.
Wonder where that came from.
People who know, but it was met with some resistance, and so I'm really happy with this. And the only guy we haven't been able to get on the show from this group is Aaron Bruce, and it's because he's in Australia. But now that he's going to be here, hopefully that we can get him on the show, because he won't have this ridiculous time zone and hemisphere problem that we've run into. Yeah, no doubt. He definitely needs to be a part of the show, because you're right. We've had Mamadou and Dugat and Geralds and Rogers, but man, that's really cool. That's something that, you know, obviously took a lot of planning and creativity to make this happen and have them as like the sole members of that class. So that just came down, and that was definitely of interest, I would imagine, to Baylor fans. And what timing too, coming fresh off the national championship in basketball, to have these guys who helped lay the foundation, obviously a part of that. All right, now there's a bunch of other things going on all across sports. I'm just going to kind of blow out some various headlines here. Kawhi Leonard has re-upped with the Los Angeles Clippers, 4-year, $176.3 million deal for Kawhi. Remember, he opted out, and people were like, "Oh my God, he's going to leave LA." And no, that's the NBA for you. That's just all contractual, and I don't think there was ever really much of a chance that he was going to be headed elsewhere. And in fact, he won't be, at least for the next couple of years. 4 years, $176.3. So any remaining Spurs fans who held out hope that somehow Kawhi would return one day, not that maybe there's many that would want that, but definitely not going to happen anytime soon. Yeah, well, and I'm not surprised. I mean, the whole reason he left the Spurs was not to go to Toronto and win another title. It was he wanted to be in Southern California. There are 2 options, and the other one does not have the same salary cap room. So he was going back to the Clippers. This was not. And look, it wouldn't surprise me that if Kawhi and his uncle might have thrown some he's unhappy kind of things out so that he gets his way. But he wasn't going to go anywhere. Was he going to Sacramento? No, where's he going? No, yeah, it was all just contractual stuff, and he ends up making a ton of money. He had declined the $36 million option to become a free agent, and all along it was expected that he was going to remain in L.A. So, yeah, he's officially staying in L.A. Kawhi Leonard, massive deal, 4 years, $176.3 million. I thought this was a pretty cool story that involves another NBA player, or former NBA player, I should say, and J.R. Smith. Did you see this? He's enrolling at North Carolina A&T State to pursue a degree in liberal studies, and he's also awaiting word from the NCAA on his eligibility because he wants to join the North Carolina A&T State Aggies golf team. So J.R. Smith, going back to college, has re-enrolled and also looking to play a little golf while he's at it. So that's kind of an interesting career, transition and career path for sure. Yeah, part of the hard problem, it says in the story, is that since it's been 17 years he's gotten out of high school, it's not like you can just go back to his high school and say, hey, we're J.R. Smith's grades. I'm sure they purge those things when it's no longer relevant. Most of the time it's Did J.R. Smith graduate? Yes. So those are the things. I think that's maybe one thing that the NCAA needs to be like, look, how can this hurt? Like, just let the dude
At the same time, though, it's like he's 35 years old and he's coming back to school, and there's like a 21-year-old probably that would like a scholarship. I mean, I don't know if he would even take a scholarship. I don't know how that would all work. Yeah, I mean, I doubt he would. But still, it's for those not affected by it, and maybe there won't even be anybody affected by it. But I think that's cool, man. He's going back to school. He's 35 years old, going to NCAA, and is going to try to play some golf. So we'll see if J.R. Smith is able to do that. But certainly going to be the oldest person on campus, I would think, as far as students go. Maybe not, though.
I mean, you never know. Some people come back to college.
Master's degrees
and all that. That's the great thing about college is there's no age limit. You can go back whenever you want. But I'm sure he'll be the oldest athlete on campus.
I would think so. I would hope so. Yeah, I would actually hope so that would be the case.
They have a lady on the volleyball team who's 41. No,
but hell of a serve. All right, Dr. Pepper. A lot of NIL stuff is going on. Dr. Pepper is partnered with Clemson quarterback DJ Uiagalelei for their next installment of Fansville. I'm sure if you watch college football enough, you've seen those Fansville Dr. Pepper commercials. But this is the first big brand, national big brand, to partner with a college football player for a national TV commercial. So Uiagalelei, the first signee for Dr. Pepper. That's a pretty big one right there. So good for him. Also, a lot of other NIL stuff going on. USC cornerback Sierra Wright, who was also in the latest Space Jam movie. I don't know if you know that or not.
I did not.
He is going to apparently be, or he has apparently inked a deal where there's going to be a TV show about his life. So he is somebody who has taken full advantage of the NIL. He's partnered with Overtime, which is a creator studio, and they are going to launch, or they are launching a creator studio, this Overtime company. They've invested $1 million in NIL-driven partnerships. They'll help athletes promote new products from shows to apparel. So one of their first big announcements is, USC cornerback and Space Jam star Sierra Wright is going to be doing a show about his life.
Yeah. I have not seen the new Space Jam. Have you?
No, I have not seen it. I have not seen it, and I probably won't until it comes across my TV when I have nothing else to watch. Yeah. I mean, I just don't have a desire. I'm not a big cartoons guy or a big animation guy. Like, there's certain stuff that I enjoy, but probably most of the animation I've watched anytime recently is like Batman animation, like the Long Halloween and stuff, like the graphic novels they turned into cartoons. But no, I don't have kids. I don't have like little nephews and nieces that I carry around either. So, it's just not of interest to me. Have you seen it?
No.
Okay.
And I'd probably maybe watch it with my nephews or something. But
yeah,
I'd rather show them the first one with the actual greatest player of all time.
Well, controversial stance there. No, I mean, I'm sure it's fine, but it's just I'm not 10 years old anymore. I just don't. Yeah. Don't really care. Elsewhere, this is probably the coolest of the NIL announcements. I mentioned Sierra Wright, and I mentioned obviously a big deal for Clemson's QB and Dr. Pepper, but BYU might have stolen the cake today as far as name, image, likeness agreements go. BYU has partnered with a local company, Built Brands LLC. It will include multi-year name, image, likeness deals for all members of the Cougars football team. And this is the kicker here. For the 36 walk-ons, the compensation will be in an amount comparable to the cost of tuition for the academic year. Per BYU, 123 of its football players will enter into agreements with Built Brands LLC, which is based out of Utah. They distribute protein and energy products. So basically, the gist of this is the players who agree to it, they'll wear, the branding. They'll have stuff on their practice helmets, which is something I hadn't really thought about, and that's kind of new, and I don't really know what that does because it's not like we get a whole lot of access to watching practice to begin with, but okay. They also take part in experiential events, and walk-ons will be provided additional social media and experience promotion. So basically what this means is everybody, even if you're not on scholarship, is going to be able to pay their tuition based off this singular NIL deal, which is obviously a huge thing for these walk-ons.
Well, that's a cool thing, and part of it might be that BYU has that own TV network too.
That's true, yeah.
So I don't know, and like the deal, the NIL rules are different in every single state. So based on what I'm hearing here, this is probably not something that would be legal in Florida or Texas. because it can't be directly through the school. But
right.
But in Utah, I mean,
and I don't know what happens if somebody like breaks the honor code. Does that break their agreement with this brand? I don't know how all that's going to work, and it's really not for me to have to worry about. But they're going to get their tuition paid, the walk-ons in particular, and I guess that'll just be nice extra money for the non-walk-ons. They're already getting their scholarships paid for, so they just get to enjoy a little bit extra cash. But I think that's cool, and obviously one of the beneficial ways that this could work. Alabama has joined Ohio State and North Carolina in offering group licensing for their athletes in conjunction with being able to use the school marks through a group called the Brander Group. The Brander Group announced they will be developing group licensing programs for current and former student athletes at Alabama in all varsity sports, and separate alumni athletes will soon be able to benefit from new opportunities to profit off NIL through group licensing programs that utilize the university's official logos and trademarks. So this is not a total shocker, because this was always about what the school was going to allow. So in this case, Alabama, Ohio State, North Carolina, I guess, are kind of on the forefront of coming to an agreement where these people can use the A or the Buckeye logo or what have you, whereas some schools who don't have something like this in place, you go off and you do an autograph signing, they're not necessarily going to be keen on you, doing the sports bar autograph signing and then having like the big Baylor logo in the background.
Well, and Baylor, at least at the outset of this, was one of those schools that said that right now, there's nothing in place. And I don't know if the Texas law specifically prohibits that. Like, again, like these things are going to have to be amended and go along. And they will be. Like, the minute that somebody sees that you can make money, like you can make money off the licensing, like everybody can make money off of it, and Alabama's doing it, then here's the other rule. If Alabama does it, everybody else is going to want to do it.
Right.
I mean, so Alabama's doing it, and honestly, if you just said Alabama, Tennessee Tech, and the University of Alaska are all doing this, and whatever. But Alabama, I mean, like, Alabama's doing it. I mean, so everybody's going to follow.
It's a sport where it's all about the Joneses and keeping up with them, right? So, Yep, absolutely. The Pac-12 has announced they have reverted to their standard policy regarding game forfeitures in all sports for the upcoming season, and will count any games that a team is unable to play as forfeit losses. They had amended the rule and counted games that were canceled last year due to player availability. They ruled those as no contest, but this year they're changing that up, and if you're unable to play, then it's going to be an outright forfeit, at least in Pac-12 play.
Yeah, and the only way that they're going to get people to get vaccines who absolutely don't want them is to make them go through the rigmarole and have consequences and forfeit. And, I could get deep in the weeds on this, and I'm not going to, but I think that's the only way is you're going to have to get tested every week, you have to do this, and
it says
if an outbreak happens, then you're going to forfeit the game, and so better get vaccinated.
Yeah, they also had updated their pay to return to play protocols, which if you're vaccinated, it no longer mandates regular testing or quarantine after you've had exposure to someone who's tested positive, so you're pretty much free to just continue moving around. But if you're unvaccinated, which includes players, coaches, and other staff, for the Pac-12 at least, they will be required to be tested and quarantined after returning to campus following non-team related travel. They'll go through regular testing, which will be at least 1 PCR test per week or 3 antigen tests per week, and they'll be forced to wear a mask while indoors. They'll also be subject to quarantine guidelines, which can include 10-day quarantine periods if you're exposed to somebody who's positive. And once teams reach 85% vaccination rate, that's when they will be subject to perhaps modified protocols. But yeah, I mean, if you don't want to take it, that's fine. But you're just going to have, the hassle of a lot of the stuff you had to do last year. And that's still, obviously, for some people, not going to matter. And they're still going to be like, cool, I'll do that. I'd rather do that than not have the vaccine. And that's their choice. And we'll see how it works.
Yeah, I think we know the answer to that question.
Yeah, but I think we do.
But, again, some people are just not going to budge.
I don't want to make this the COVID hour either, because I was doing a lot of NIL, so I really haven't. But the Saints have announced they will require proof of COVID vaccine or negative test to attend Saints games this year.
And that state of Louisiana has an app now.
And they've got a full-on outbreak and have it basically the entire time. Yeah.
So they have an app that will pull up a picture of your driver's license and your vaccination status. So it's pretty easy to do. Now, I do know that this gets into the slippery slope of, if you start requiring proof of this, like where does it stop? And like
start getting the World War II comparisons.
Here's the deal. I get this philosophical debate. I totally get it. And like, I wish that we could have it like without the biases in it of like, let's really talk about like, okay, are we willing to sacrifice this now if you promise not to do anything worse later? Right. And that's the fear. But I don't know. Like, so I get it. It's a private business, you know, and they can do what they want to do. And, you know, that'll make everybody else feel at ease, I'm sure.
This was a blast from the past for me. I grew up in East Texas, and we had our fair share of pro athletes. I mean, Earl Campbell's like probably the greatest of all time out of my neck of the woods. But you know, Adrian Peterson, Patrick Mahomes, and the list goes on and on. There's been a lot of great players, but in baseball, it's been few and far between. And I wouldn't exactly say great here, but I did know this young man, and when he was a young Texas Ranger. Had him on my show back then quite often. Chris Davis has announced he will be retiring, citing a hip injury. And you know what? On the one hand, first of all, I haven't talked to Chris in a very long time. Like, it's been years and probably a decade, actually. But when he was a young player for the Rangers, he was from Longview, which is like 30 minutes away. It was a cool story, and it was cool to talk to him and cool to see the come up. He's made bazillions of dollars since then. But with that benefit of the money comes the downside, and when you make an announcement that you're retiring, there were a lot of people that had a lot of smart-ass things to say about Chris Davis and the money and the strikeouts and all that.
He struck out a ton. But guess what? He was just at the forefront of what Major League Baseball has become. And, yeah, he struck out a lot. He hit a lot of home runs. He was an excellent defensive player. He was an excellent defensive player. Smokey and I interviewed him in person at Rangers camp, you know, when he was still there. And he was so great to us. Actually, when he was taking ground balls next to Adrian Beltre, he would take them and then throw them at Smokey.
Oh, really?
Like, that's what he was doing. He'd take them and pitch them off at Smokey because he was trying to get his attention. Yeah. And, you know, Smokey can get on the phone.
He's on his phone. He's reading something that doesn't matter.
I was like, hey, I think Chris Davis is throwing baseballs at you. And he's like, what? But yeah, it was not. I mean,
he just had to respond to that tweet instead of paying attention.
He's a great dude, Chris Davis. Wish him all the best in his post career, whatever that's going to be. I'm sure he's got enough money to do nothing.
Oh God, he's in the final year of his 7-year, $161 million contract. Yeah, or no, excuse me, next year would have been year 7 of the 7-year, 100.
Yeah, it still gets it. So that's Major League Baseball for you. So. Congratulations, Chris. You've earned enough money to do nothing until you decide to do something. So
yeah, and he's early 30s? 35, and he can retire. And man, that's a nice little thing to be able to walk into retirement with a nest egg like that. But yeah, thanks to Chris Davis for as kind as he was to me. I know he had his hits and his misses in Baltimore, but he is calling it a career due to a hip injury. That's the reason why he's signing. He's just had a boatload of injuries. I think one more note here, Florida corner and projected starter Jaden Hill is going to miss this upcoming season, tore the ACL on his left knee. Dan Mullen said the injury was a massive disappointment. Junior started 5 games last season and was going to be one of their starting cornerbacks, but instead, just a week into training camp, he's torn his ACL, so... bummer news for Jaden Hill. I know Paul's not going to cry too many tears, although you absolutely don't root for guys to get injured, but that is a little bit of a blow for the Gators.
No, it does. Look, and here's the thing. You kind of want part of your ego as a fan. Like, I kind of
want to beat their best.
I want them at the full speed.
Exactly.
Yeah, I mean, like, now look, I'll take them at half speed. I mean, like, that's fine, but you do want to, like, you know, the one thing you don't want, and I learned this as I got older, is you beat the rival, especially when you have buddies that are like fans of the rival, like, oh yeah, we didn't have this. And then you go like, well, that's a really good point. Mm-hmm. You know, like, again, Oklahoma was going to beat Florida last year regardless, I think, but Kyle Pitts didn't play in that game.
Right,
so,
yeah.
I mean, it's probably a different game with the dude in it, you know? So,
well, as fans, like, you know, you don't want to hear it from other, like, I mean, really, it's just best to tune out other fans, quite frankly, because every big win, they're going to try to, like, poke holes through. But that is one of those, where you're like, well, man, we beat Florida. Yeah, they didn't have Kyle Pitts. So would you rather have been able to say, we beat Florida full strength? Yeah, you would have liked to have said that. And final thing here, this whole Deshaun Watson thing is just so odd. Like the fact that he's just out at training camp, kind of going through the motions for TV cameras for a few minutes and then going to the locker room. But today, Sarah Barshop, she tweeted out a little video from this morning, and it's, you know, outside the facility, and there's a cameraman, and he's got his camera directed at the, you know, the end zone where some players are starting to make their way, and the main player he's focused on is Deshaun Watson, and Deshaun Watson walks by and he just says, "Why are you always filming me?" And asked that question and just kept walking. And, of course, a lot of people were like, well, because, you're accused of 20 different, assaults or whatever. But, that just kind of sparked more conversation. And I just find the whole thing so bizarre. Mm-hmm. The whole thing, just from the way we all viewed Deshaun Watson, when he first entered the league. And I don't think everyone's opinions have changed. And I'm absolutely having, covered, various cases now at this point over the years, I am absolutely not one of those who is like, you're guilty until proven innocent. I think you're innocent until proven guilty. A lot of this does make Deshaun Watson look guilty, a lot of the allegations, but that's what allegations are supposed to do. They're supposed to paint the person in a negative light, but yeah, it's just bizarre, this whole camera thing and him being out at practice, as John McClain was talking to us about. So, yeah, today he's walked out. He looked at the cameraman. He's like, why are you all always filming? And it's like, well, there's nothing else to film at Texans camp, for one. There's nothing else that's that interesting. And two, it's just weird you're there, man. It's really weird that you're even there. And I know why he is, but it's still strange nonetheless.
Yeah, he's got to go through the motions, and he's going to get his money. He's going to count against the salary cap. He's not going to play a snap for the Texans this year. He's probably not going to play a snap for anyone.
They have him on the depth chart at fourth.
Yeah, because they have to.
Yeah, what is even the point? Yeah.
Yeah, eventually he'll get put on the commissioner's list, you would think, and move on. All right, that's going to do it for Off the Radar. Great stuff, Craig. As always, when we come back, your calls, texts, emails, and the top 5 at 5:55 comes up in about 34 minutes. This is Sikkim 365 Radio, 365 Sports. BetUS.com. Remember this promo code, Sikkim125. That's Sikkim125. That means you get a 125% bonus or a 200% bonus with crypto if you use that promo code at BestUS. The 3-decade leader, they've been serving clients for over 25 years and prides itself on being known as America's favorite sports book. With action on every sport across the world, they can pretty much guarantee that they've got your game, and BetUS offers the industry's biggest retail bonuses to keep their players betting longer, and the BetUS loyalty program is legendary. They keep their players up to date with articles, players, team stats, and trends, giving you the right tools to make the best wagering decisions. Look, Sikkim125. Look, if you like to bet on things, Sikkim125. Sikkim125 at BetUS.com.
Nothing beats fall, football, and Ford. Hi, I'm Mark Stewart with Bird Colgin Ford. The Friday night lights at Midway High School ignite that electric feeling. And Bird Colgin Ford, we have some cool electric vehicle options as well. Come put your custom order in today for the all-new Mach-E or Ford Lightning. Enjoy the electricity and the lightning speed on the football field and nominate who you think deserves the Built Ford Tough Player of the Week at FordPlayerOfTheWeek.com. Visit us anytime at BKFord.com, making buying your next Ford simple at BK Ford.
Parenting is full of surprises.
You never know what to expect.
So after our son was born, I called my Texas Farm Bureau insurance agent to set up a life insurance policy in case something happened to me.
Sawyer is now 2.
And we'll soon have a sister. There's no one else I would trust with protecting my family.
Stop by and see our agents at one of our 3 McLennan County locations.
Coverage and discounts are subject to qualifications and policy terms and may vary by situation.
Waco Regional Tennis and Fitness was built to help give you a chance to enjoy an elite tennis facility, but also to remain fit and reshape your body. And ahead of the curve with the explosion of interest in pickleball with instructors Joe Rosa and Jody Thurman and courts available. Like your body, Waco Regional Tennis and Fitness has gone through its own physical changes. Large flat screens stretched across the weight room with Wi-Fi available with their own app to enjoy news, business, weather, or sports. Beautiful sound of members working out, running, lifting, stretching, group exercise classes throughout each day. Personal trainers Christy London and Randall Corley. New look bar and lounge area with beer and wine with large flat screens. New touchless water fountains outside of each locker room, and both include showers, sauna, and whirlpool, and a world-class tennis courts facility and youth academy led by Pro Britt Cole. Fitness and tennis merchandise and a tanning bed. I promise you'll look and feel better. You just need to walk through the front door. It's time to react today, not tomorrow, at Waco Regional Tennis and Fitness, Lake Shore Drive in Waco.
At Ideal MRI, we feel blessed to be part of the Waco community. We're a small family business here in Central Texas. At times like this, the cost of healthcare has never been more important. And unfortunately, significant illnesses and injuries still occur. And that's why Ideal MRI is open and here to serve you through this difficult time. So if you need an MRI, ask your doctor about Ideal MRI. You can schedule online in minutes at idealmri.com or call 833-IDEAL-MRI.
It's time to fire up the grill, heat up the oven, or get that deep fryer going to enjoy the top quality products at Waco Custom Marketplace. Order 30-pound sacks of live crawfish by 6 on Wednesday. Pick up on Friday afternoon after 2 or Saturday. Enjoy the weekend. 30-pound sacks of live crawfish available right now for $4.25 a pound. Find all the crawfish boil ingredients you need, including red beef potatoes, sausage, corn cobettes, and Louisiana boil seasoning. Make your order for live crawfish by Wednesday at 6. Pick up on Friday after 2 or all day Saturday and enjoy the weekend. Waco Custom Marketplace, your home for fresh baked kolache, cinnamon rolls every day. Butcher shop to cut your steaks the way you want. Fresh seafood, summer sausage, boudin, house cured and smoked bacon, spices, seasonings, soup mixes, and more, and weekly gift boxes for any occasion. Waco Custom Marketplace, 425 Lake Air Drive in Waco, or WacoCustomMarketplace.com.
Welcome back to Sikkim 365 Radio.
Daniels 7 yards deep in his own end zone, and he's going to be sacked, and that'll be 2 points for the Bears. Terrell Bernard.
The 5 o'clock hour is brought to you by Edward Jones and financial advisor Cam Heathcott. Edward Jones, making sense of investing. Here's Paul Catalina and Craig Smoak.
Welcome back in. Sikkim 365 Radio, 365 Sports. I will try to catch up with the chat here in a minute, but we're in off the radar, Craig, and it kind of gets going pretty fast, and I can't keep up. So
yeah, I don't see much of the chat. It's been cool though to see, look over at your screen or look over at Smokey's screen from time to time and just see the rattling off, the constant talking back and forth. I know there's almost like a show within a show going on over there.
Yeah, it is.
So that's awesome. We appreciate everybody who's a part of this thing with us.
And for those of you asking, Bump has his finger on the nuke button today. He's the guy with the key. Like he turns 2 keys, and then that's what happens. So. Hopefully he's keeping up. And again, we want the chat room to be highbrow. Like I said the other day, a salon, so to speak, of upper-level discussion. Not, we don't want gutter trash in there.
Right.
We want, erudite conversations about amazing things. That's what we want. We want you to be up here, not down here. That's what we want. And I understand that we're talking about a chat room, so I know that that's unrealistic, but a boy can dream. We'll take a call here in a second. And Craig, I keep thinking about J.R. Smith being 35, 36 years old as a freshman eligible golfer. And if you're just random golfer at the tournament and you're paired with him, how trippy is that?
I think it'd be awesome.
Yeah.
I mean, who would be a more fun partner to have? Like the sophomore from Indiana that's, exactly similar to you and your age, or the NBA champion. I think I'd want to probably play golf with the NBA champion. J.R. Smith's definitely not my favorite person. He's definitely, at times, I found him quite annoying. But, playing around a golf or a tournament, beating J.R. Smith while getting stories about LeBron and stuff, I think that'd be pretty awesome, yeah.
Dude's seen some stuff.
Oh, yeah, he has.
Yeah, absolutely.
Seen a lot.
All right, let's go to Steve from Arlington. Thanks for your call, Steve. You're on the BetUS caller line.
Yeah, is this the Steve Beard and Neil Jeffrey of Sikkim?
I guess. I don't know. Is that a compliment? It should be. Yeah, Neil Jeffrey. Yeah.
Okay. Hey, quick question. I just wanted to say the other day I ate at a restaurant there in Waco, and I run to Grant Taft. And, man, I got to thinking after this Bowden died, boy, it's going to be a sad day when if and, of course, when we lose Grant Taft.
Yeah, look, I think he's doing. He's plugging along there, but I mean, you get to age, and it's just every time you wonder. But I'm going to be very sad that Coach Taft has been nothing but amazing to me for 15 years. He's been nothing but amazing to us since the founding of this company and this show. He's the first person that wasn't one of us that was in this room. He's been great. Yeah, I mean that was a wild day, but I mean we had a lot of issues, and he played ball the whole time. He was great.
Yeah, I mean, he is Baylor's version of their Bobby Bowden. There's other schools who have maybe had 2-3 legendary head coaches. Think of Alabama, for example. Oklahoma can reel off like 3 or 4 Hall of Fame coaches. But for Baylor, certainly Grant Taft is at the very top of the list, and he is their Bowden or their Spurrier or whatever you want to phrase it as. And that'll be a really hopefully not for a long time, but I mean, being realistic, it's going to be a really sad day. But he is, like to what Paul said, he's been nothing but great to us. And, I know everybody's got their own experiences and their own opinions and everything, but I mean, based on only what I can go off of, I have an immense amount of respect for Grant Taft and the way he handles himself and kind of the respect that he commands. And, for those that don't know, because we do have a lot of listeners, these studios that we're in right now, it's stone's throw away from McLean Stadium, basically. We can, walk out the door and can look to our left and see it. And these studios are a lot more finished up now than they were, at the beginning. And at the beginning, before we were even settled in or doing shows here, it was at the height of COVID. And so we really weren't even around each other that much. We were doing shows on Zoom for like 2 months, basically. But when we finally got settled into here, and then obviously Paul's place as well, but like we were off and on with, depending on what was going on, we were either on Zoom for a few weeks or then eventually Paul's and back and forth and then eventually here. But Grant Taft came in here one day at the very beginning and sat down and did a lengthy interview, and he was tremendous and got a lot of views on that. And so if you haven't checked that out and you're somebody who is a Grant Taft or a Baylor fan, then that's somewhere on the website. You probably just type his name in and check that out. But it's a kind of a lengthy just interview about a lot of different things and about his career, and it's one-on-one style here in the studio, and it was really good. It was a few months ago, but it was really good. So, or actually like a year ago, huh?
Yeah.
Jesus. You can check that out. But no doubt he's got a lot of respect around these parts.
We barely had chairs in here.
Yeah, I mean we really.
Armstrong, that desk wasn't even in here. Armstrong was at like a little one of these tables.
Yeah.
Right here, the little tables.
I can't believe you are bringing this up because I'm absolutely embarrassed by the production quality of that.
Oh, you don't want people to go and check that out now? No. Never mind. There was not a Grant Taft interview that we did a year ago.
No, we did another one more recently where Smokey did.
Yeah.
A lengthy one, but that first one, that looks rough.
Okay.
Yeah. Well, I mean, again, we didn't even know.
Oh, yeah, he has done 2 of them now, hasn't he? Okay, so there's a more recent one, my bad.
We didn't even know what we needed to do. Like, the thing is we need to do, and he was so gracious with it and went along with it, is we needed to interview somebody in here so we knew what to do and what not to do. Mm-hmm. And then, like, the thing is at the time we couldn't put anybody over here in the lounge where we put them now because, again, we had it, like, his daughter and his mom were sitting in office chairs and on an ice chest.
And masked up. And, that was just even kind of awkward just because, like, there's just nobody really knew what was going on, you know? And, like, he's an older guy and you're just worried about the mask and stuff. So that was how long ago that was, like a year ago. But, I forgot about that second one. So that one does have a little bit more production to it. So, Armstrong's doesn't have to look back on that first one. But, I mean, that was still good. And, who would have thought, just final thing I had to say on it, but who would have thought that, when this whole thing started with Sikkim 365 and we had that interview that it would turn into like all this stuff now here. I mean, like so much has changed just even the last year, not to mention the audience that we have now, thanks to, all you crazy folks from around the country and Realignment and YouTube and all that. It's been quite the year. That's for sure.
Yeah. So Carl Campbell on the Riverbend Liquor and Wine text line. Hey guys, As you, he's a Penn Stater. His question is, who do you think will be the next Joe Pa or Bobby Bowden, someone who's only at 1 or 2 schools as a head coach for a long period of time? I mean, that's kind of where Saban is right now, right? I mean,
yeah, but he was at LSU before that.
He was at Michigan State before that.
Yeah,
so.
Michigan State. So, I mean, if you're talking about, I don't know. I mean, he should still count in that category. Yeah, he should absolutely still count in that category. I mean, Dabo at Clemson comes to mind. That's definite one that comes to mind. I mean, Lincoln Riley, I would say, but I really don't know if he's like 20 years down the road still a college football coach. I don't necessarily buy into all the NFL stuff. Like when they were talking about the Browns because of Baker Mayfield, I really didn't believe too much of that. But I would not be surprised at all to see Lincoln Riley eventually go and make that move and just try to see what happens.
Urban Meyer did, and Urban Meyer is almost 20 years older than him. So, I mean, that's a little bit different. Maybe
but if Urban Meyer goes and has some success, then that might make it even more enticing because there was if Saban had gone to Miami. And he was actually, he was turning that thing around. And he even points at that, basically what happened with Saban in the NFL was once that Drew Brees trade fell through, he was like, all right, screw it. I mean, because he needed that quarterback. I mean, he said that just a few months ago. That was kind of like the final, all right, I'm going to probably end up going back to college thing. But, yeah, if Saban had stuck around and had success, or even Spurrier with the Redskins when he was there, which was a very forgettable time, then maybe you would have seen more pursuing that, but I think it probably scared guys away, if anything. But now you look at it and, you see some college coaches making successful transition. If Urban Meyer has some success in Jacksonville, then maybe that does lead to a Lincoln Riley going, you know what, I think I could go to wherever and be a good coach. But if he doesn't, I'm just saying, I don't know what his future holds. If he was 50, I would say obviously he'd be in that category because he's probably not going anywhere at age 50, but he's 34 or something crazy like that. So he's got so much in store. But yeah, Dabo, who else would there be right now? Dabo and Saban. Obviously.
I mean, but the other thing that you
Mac Brown's too old to really have done that with North Carolina at this point.
Yeah, I mean, he's been there, 37. That's how old
he's a little older.
Lincoln Riley is.
Still, though.
But I do think that he's going to have to, he's going to get bowled over.
Right.
He's going to have to get bowled
there's
over.
no reason to leave for the sake of going to the NFL.
Yeah, and you don't leave, there are places you don't leave unless you do get bowled over. Again, what college football job is Lincoln Riley going to other than Oklahoma?
Right.
I mean, so he's not going to one.
I forgot about Matt Rule going to Carolina too, but he was always an NFL guy. That was always going to be the case.
Yeah. So you I don't know. It's hard, and part of the thing you have to think about being at school for a long, long time. So Lincoln Riley's 37 years old. Say he in the next 10 years he gets two national titles. They have 2 national titles, and his kids start to get older. You start to do that thing. He's making $7 million a year. Right now, Bobby Bowden didn't make $7 million a year. Joe Pa, they made great money, especially for the time, and it might have been somewhat comparable. But sometimes you wonder how many guys you're going to see coach more than 15 years when they make $5 million a year.
Right.
And you get to a point where you're you know what? I'm 61 years old. Don't care anymore.
I think one that just popped into my head, Kirk Ferentz at Iowa.
Yeah,
he's a Joe Pa or Bowden or whatever you want to say for the Iowa Hawkeyes. That was another name that popped into my head that I would add in there. Patterson at TCU is one of those guys. That's another one that I think you'd have to throw into the mix.
And Gary Patterson's not going anywhere.
No,
he's probably already had opportunities to go to maybe bigger places. He's got a good thing at TCU. Here's the thing about Gary Patterson is,
if he was going to go, it would have happened already at this point.
And he's also the kind of guy that is going to have the university's going to have to put up. He's quirky.
He's got some mulky to him.
Yeah,
yeah.
So the school's going to have to put up with some stuff that even big time coaches couldn't get away with a lot of some of the stuff at certain places.
Well, I mean, he's carved out a lot of favor there, and rightfully so. I mean, if he were to go to somewhere else, I mean, it'd be the initial buzz of yeah, great, we hired this head coach, and he's a great head coach, and he's going to turn our football program around or whatever the case may be. But it would take him, another 15, 20 years to carve out the same type of niche that he has in Fort Worth.
Yeah.
And I just don't know that would be worth it. I feel like, had the Texas stuff gone a little differently, that there was definitely an opportunity there, but they went a different direction, or he went a different direction, however that all unfolded. And I know others have have been involved with him from time to time. But, like, at this point, like, after all that, he's still there. I just don't, see him going and launching a brand new career somewhere else when
61.
Yeah, and he's 61. Yeah, exactly. So, I mean, what are you going to do? You're going to go start over from scratch and build up a program in your 60s? I don't think you're probably going to do that, but he would fit in that category that you're talking about, Carl.
Well, and Carl said didn't think about the aspect of how much they get paid, but yeah, I mean, to me, that's part of it. I mean, like, sometimes, you're in it and you love it, and, Nick Saban's going to make $10 million a year.
I love it here. I love the station. I love the management. But, like, if somebody came around that had something that I'm at least a little interested in doing and they're offering, like, 2-3 times as much money, like you guys, but, that's just a reality. I mean, if I would have to get money whipped. I'm saying it wouldn't be for, like, an extra $100 a month. That wouldn't be worth doing that. But these guys, they make so much money that, like, what else would it? How much more are they going to offer? Like another $1 million?
And again, like, especially with longevity, like 25 years, I know I could make $10 million a year for 25, especially with inflation and the way that coaches' salaries go up, and I could make all this money and all that. But what if instead of going for 25 years, after 15, I just said, I've got more money than I ever could do with. I've won a bunch. I've done what I can do. I've contributed what I want to contribute. It's time for somebody else to have this job, and I'm just going to go be retired and have quality of life. I think that that's something you got to consider, because I think that's one of the reasons we don't see guys coaching for Bowden and Paterno like streaks like that.
Well, I think
because they've got a ton of money.
I think, there's the money factor, but, like, at the same time, these guys are football coaches. They're going to get bored just sitting on the boat every day. Yeah. That's why guys come back to football, or they are coaching into their 70s when they've probably, tucked away their retirement nest egg long before that. It's because they just love, either being around young people, helping, shape their lives, mold their lives for the better, guiding them through, trouble, guiding them through strife and heartache and victories and all. Like, there's just that aspect that's why these guys are coaches. It's what they love to do. They love the X's and O's part of it. So, a lot of us, when we're the ones not making that money, we focus on the money. And you'd be surprised that for a lot of these people, like, the money's great, and not having to worry about the money's great. And, like, trust me, I would trade with a person who's well off to just see how the other side lives. But you get to a certain point where it's still about the things that ultimately you love, and that's the coaching, the X's and O's, or the playing, or whatever the case may be. And I think the biggest thing, more so than, like, just having money and being able to retire, is, like, just the stress of it all. I mean, it doesn't take but a second to get on the hot seat these days, and the only reason why some don't is just because their contracts are so ironclad. But, like, I mean, look, with the realignment and with the recruiting rules and with name, image, likeness, and I mean, I think that's the stuff that's going to run away as many coaches potentially as, having a big wallet does, because it's not exactly what you signed up for anymore. There's a lot of extracurricular stuff. But then again, there seem to be a lot of guys like the Dave Arandas who are like, hey, this is part of the deal. This is the way it should be, and we'll adjust and we'll work with it accordingly. But there may be some guys who are a little bit older who are just like, I don't have time to do it. I just don't want to do this.
I'm sure there's some grizzled old coaches.
Yeah, it's like you've already been through so much. It's like, do I really want to start like this whole new era? You know what I mean?
Yeah, like the minute you get your 10th guy coming in and saying, hey, coach, I've got a thing at 4:30 today at a car wash. And you're like, okay. Yeah, I didn't have to deal with it. I didn't have to deal with this in 94. Yeah, but this is better. But yeah.
Going back, just putting a finishing touch on Carl's question we've been talking about for a while. But there's only a handful of those guys, potentially. And, maybe a couple others that if they are around. I mean, like Matt Campbell at Iowa State would be a guy. But is he? Can you guarantee he's going to be there in 5 years, much less 15 or 20? If he is there for 20 years, then he will definitely be one of those guys. But, who knows?
Yeah, I don't know.
I mean, is Dabo at Clemson in 10, 15 years? I mean, probably, but don't know.
I mean, and the only school he maybe would go to would be Bama, because that's where he played. He played for Gene Stallings at Bama. And so it's look, Gene Stallings had a very long coaching career, but he really wasn't at Alabama all that long comparatively. He was at A&M, he was with the Cardinals, it's this hard. Like Bobby Bowden was, and Joe Paterno, but I know more about Bowden. He was just in the perfect spot for himself, and he built it was his program. And even then, the other problem about it, the other reason you won't see it, and Craig, you mentioned the hot seat, is that, at the end, people ran out Bobby Bowden. It was time for Jimbo Fisher. They were tired of going 7-5.
Exactly.
And losing to NC State and
Mac Brown in Texas.
Yeah.
You're losing like 2 games every year now. This is unacceptable. And, ran him right out of town a few years after his national title. And had he stuck around, they'd probably win at least one more. I mean, I feel pretty confident in that because they had knocked on the door again in 2009. We know what happened there with the Colt injury. But and I know that, like, okay, maybe he was running out of gas there towards the end because, like, by 2013, like, the recruiting was starting to kind of go down a little bit in comparison to where it was. Where Mac was like, when he was first attacked, he was like National Signing Day guy. Like, he was the recruiter. And then by the end, they had started to lose some of that steam. So I understood where they were coming from, but it's not all that different from Nebraska and Frank Solich of you got so spoiled. And, like, if you lost 2 games a year, that was a bad year because you didn't go unbeaten or your only loss wasn't in, like, a bowl game. And they would trade for Frank Solich in 2 seconds based on the last decade of what they've had there. And I'm sure Texas would rather have had Mac Brown in some ways than Charlie Strong and Tom Herman. Well, but then again, it got him to Steve Sarkisian, and maybe that's what was needed.
Well, and sometimes, though, you gotta weather the storm a little bit more and not set ridiculous expectations. What happened to Texas was actually kind of simple, is that Mac whiffed on his quarterback.
Yeah.
Garrett Gilbert. The next guy, David Ash, got hurt a lot. So he had a quarterback deficit for a little bit, and it did not help that 3 guys around the country, 2 of them won the Heisman Trophy, and 1 of them got drafted first overall. Andrew Luck, RG3, and Johnny Manziel were all, Stanford's not a rival school, but Andrew Luck's from Houston, Texas, and they didn't get him. And then RG3.
Hell, they didn't even get JT Barrett.
Yeah,
he would have been better than anybody they had.
So that all the 3 of those guys are from Texas and not playing at the University of Texas, 2 of them winning Heisman trophies, and 1 of them being the first pick in the draft. And the fans go, well, how does this happen if you're Texas? And then it comes out, well, he offered him his defensive backs or wide receivers or whatever that was. But if you would just let him weather the storm, what's the first thing he did at North Carolina? He went to North Carolina. He got Sam Howell to change his commitment. Now that guy's going to be a top 15 pick. So, again, sometimes you just got to weather the storm and figure things out.
Right.
And when you have all of a sudden Gary Patterson in the league coaching to beat you, and Art Briles in the league coaching to beat you, and Bob Stoops, and they had all of a sudden you have all these people that are coaching to beat them, and it changed. They weren't as they were. People were trying to match them. So that's what happened there. So
yep. So basically, saying all that to say that. There's a handful of guys and, maybe some others, but it's just going to depend on how long they hang around the college game or if they bolt for the NFL or if the fan base or the school gets impatient over 3 lost seasons too many times in a row or whatever the crazy expectations are. But, there's a few guys that could potentially be that.
Yeah. Let's see. Paul S. says, Mac would not have known another after the great Colt. I don't know. You never know.
Mac wouldn't have what?
Won another one after Colt.
I wouldn't go that far. They're not in the foreseeable future based on where the talent had gone in the years right after that. Because that 2013 team that played Baylor for the Big 12 title at the old Floyd Casey Stadium, was that Tyrone Swoop? No, that was Case McCoy. Yeah, that was Case McCoy, and then they had Swoops and they weren't winning one probably in the next 5 years after that Alabama appearance, but. I don't know. I think maybe if they'd given him some time, who's to say?
I think Sam Ehlinger would have been. Here's the deal. No matter who the coach was at Texas, you'd have had Sam Ehlinger, right? That kid was going to Texas.
He might not have wanted him.
Yeah, but he was going to Texas his whole life.
Right. I'm just,
Yeah. Let's say that Sam Ehlinger is the guy he brings in. I think Sam's better with Mac Brown than he is with Tom Herman.
I think anybody's better with Mac Brown than they are with Tom Herman.
Yeah, so, you have a guy who won a bunch of games for you at Texas or won some games and pretty much did all he could most of the time, but because they didn't really develop, it's so I don't know. Let's see. Mac would have reloaded faster than Texas has this past decade. Absolutely.
Yeah, and I agree with that. Absolutely agree. And that's where I'm coming from is, there's a little bit of a stumble, 2013, that time period. But then again, and I want to, we need to take a break probably, right? The final break. But they were still playing for a Big 12 title with that team. That game was for the Big 12 championship. As lackluster or average as that particular team was, they still were playing. The winner of that game won the conference. Mm-hmm. So forgettable year, but you still were almost the champs of the Big 12. And look, that's only something they've done, 3 other times in all this time. So that would have been maybe not the most exciting win ever, but it would have, been a conference title, and that's something that they wish they'd had in the last few years. That's for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I
think he would have gotten it back to where it was. But the Garrett Gilbert thing really it screwed up the whole deal.
It was an absolute firestorm of different things, and then you thought okay, well, sometimes you miss on a quarterback. When you missed on him, while everybody else around you hit on theirs.
Yeah,
and that was what happened. I mean, so had RG3 or Johnny Manziel never really existed or had been just kind of average, Mac's probably still there. Because again, everybody can look around and go, well, nobody else's quarterback is good either. So there's not a good batch this year. That's what people would have said. When we come back, the top 5 at 5:55. This is Sikkim 365 Radio and 365 Sports.
At Baylor University, students find their place to shine. They're faithful friends and inspirational leaders. They're championship teammates and independent thinkers. They're on the cutting edge of high tech and in the halls of history. If you want to make the world a brighter place, you can. And if you want to shine in your own way, you can. The spark you need is already inside you. Bring it to Baylor, where lights shine bright.
You want to know why Stonewood Dental is so successful? Listen to what happy customers have to say.
It's pleasant. It's different than any other dentist office. I really feel like they care. And it's not that you're here for 2 hours waiting on someone to take care of you. It's quick and easy, and I bring my kids, and my kids love being here too. They really love the treasure box. Staff is really nice and accommodating, real friendly. You feel more like home. It's not sterile looking. Everybody has their own personalized rooms with decorations and decor, and they'll even have a blanket for you when it's cold. I've recommended people to actually come here, and they are patients now. I really love it here. It feels like family.
Learn more, stonewood-dental.com.
At Marco's Pizza, get craveable pizza made the Italian way with dough made from scratch, an original sauce recipe, 3 fresh signature cheeses, and premium toppings you love, served hot and safe. Right now, you can get unlimited medium one-topping pizzas for just $6.99 each. Why stop at just one? Order with your app or at marcos.com for curbside, carryout, or delivery today. Marco's, pizza lovers get it.
Boozers is the wedding ring store and more. If you're ready to get engaged or already married and want to upgrade your wife's ring for a special anniversary, Boozers is the place to go. With the largest selection of premier quality diamond engagement rings and wedding rings in Central Texas. They have 7 cases with over 300 styles of rings from top designers like Natalie Kay. Choose from yellow, white, or rose gold, plus beautiful top quality loose diamonds. With an in-house jeweler, they can also custom make anything you want. Bring in a picture or drawing and let Boozers create your one-of-a-kind pendant or ring. They can even use some of your old gold and diamond jewelry to create something new. At Boozers, you'll find a great selection of quality timepieces, and Boozers is the place for expert watch maintenance and repairs too. They specialize in expert Rolex watch repair for fine jewelry, watches, custom work, and more. Go to Boozers on Valley Mills and Lake Air Drive in Waco.
Boozers, the wedding ring store and more.
Escape the mundane with the responsive power and exhilarating agility of a new Cadillac from Richard Carr Cadillac. Smile behind the wheel again in the supercharged sophistication of a CT4 or CT5 sedan, or the sporty and spacious XT4, XT5, or XT6 lineup of SUVs. Starting at only $33,395, the Cadillac of your dreams is waiting now at an affordable price at Richard Carr. Test drive from the expansive selection at Richard Carr Cadillac, or let us bring a test drive to you. Go to richardcarcadillac.com to schedule a test drive today.
Three Nations Brewing Company has 16 different beers on draft with a new beer every Friday. It also offers 2 air-conditioned tap rooms, a large indoor beer hall, a second-floor mezzanine offering a great overview of the brewing company and equipment and patio where you can relax under the shade. Plus, you can now experience the new Three Nations Beer Garden Grill on our shaded patio with socially distanced seating for your enjoyment. Grab a cold beer and enjoy a bite from our freshly prepared and delicious menu. Street tacos, quesadillas, freshly cooked burgers and dogs, and veggie burgers too. State Fair tornado fries, nachos, and so much more, all prepared and cooked on site. So come visit the award-winning Three Nations Brewing Company on East Vandergrift off I-35 in Carrollton.
Welcome back to Sikkim 365 Radio. This is Paul Catalina's Top 5 at 5:55. Presented by Slapsticks Comedy Club. For ticket information, go to slapstickscomedy.com.
I'll be at Slapsticks Saturday night, 9:15. Throwing jokes. So come out and see me, slapstickscomedy.com for tickets. The great Paul Varghese is going to be there. Fantastic comedians headlining this weekend. Top 5 impact transfers for 2021. And look, I know that there could be more. These are 5 guys I think are in excellent situations and great fits for themselves and are going to affect their teams the most. Number 5, Charleston Rambo, who is at Miami now, transferred from Oklahoma. Craig, I know he didn't really hit the ceiling. He was good at Oklahoma. I don't know he didn't hit the ceiling, but for somewhere to go with De'Aaron King, I think he's going to fit in really well there, and he is their number 1 playmaker at Miami.
Who, De'Aaron King?
Well, I mean, as far outside of De'Aaron King, Charleston Rambo is going to be their number 1 playmaker.
Yeah, I've kind of lost track of him since he departed Oklahoma, but I do think that's a good pickup for Miami. He's obviously got some chemistry with De'Aaron King. Those two know each other quite well. It's interesting to see some Texas guys on the Miami roster. That's actually my biggest takeaway, because prior to De'Aaron King going there last year, I mean, the Texas talent was few and far between, and I get it. Like, you're based in South Florida. You don't really need the Texas talent when you've got it all in your own state and in neighboring states. But, yeah, I don't know. I'd have to actually look over a list. I don't know if he's top 5 in my opinion, but for the sake of argument, I do think he's going to be a great addition for Miami and should be, a nice little I said addition already, a bonus for them or whatever.
Yeah. Number 4, and I know he had a fumbling problem at Texas. I don't think he was used or coached right, but I think Keontae Ingram at USC is going to do well. I think that Graham Harrell is going to use him perfectly. He's very, very talented, and he just was not in the right spot. And he's not in the right offense. Tom Herman does not believe running backs exist on the
Well, I mean, he hurt himself too. He fumbled a lot. I mean, he had a fumbling issue. The first time we ever saw Keontae Ingram was in a semifinal state championship playoff semifinal game, and he was playing China Spring, who we were doing the broadcast for, and it was a hell of a game. It was a hellacious game. And Keontae Ingram was fantastic when he held onto the football. The problem was they probably beat China Spring by 4 touchdowns if he holds onto the football, Paul. And instead he had, 3 or 4 fumbles in that game? And just not even man, what a hit. And then he's just fumbling the football. And then he got to Texas, and he did a lot of that there as well. But everybody who has seen him play a little bit knows how freaky fast and dynamic and explosive he can be. But he's got to solve the ball control problem. And if he can do that, which I'm sure they're working on quite a bit out there in LA, then I think he can be a really dynamic and game-breaking type of player for them in a Harrell offense. I'm excited to see what he does.
Number 3, Apu Ika at Baylor. He's going to do something for them. I don't think that they had it a little bit a couple years ago, but I don't think they've had this in a long time.
No, even Bravion Roy, who they had a couple years back, who's now in the NFL with the Panthers, I mean, he was a little bit shorter, I believe. Apu is a big personality. Guy's super lovable. He's got to make sure that he stays on his P's and Q's as far as classes and things like that. But so far so good as far as his transition, and they're not even trying to hide the fact that there are giant expectations for this young man. I mean, they're basically just saying, no, look, these are the expectations, and, this is how much stock we're putting into you and how much weight we're putting on your shoulders specifically. And he knows that, and he seems cool with that. And if things go right, then he's an All-American type of player, in my opinion, in this defense based on what's around him and who's coaching him. I think he's got that level. Maybe not this year, but certainly in a couple years he's an All-American. But I wouldn't be surprised to see it this year because I think their defense is going to be really good.
Yeah. Number 2, Key Lawrence at Oklahoma. One of the many Tennessee transfers into the Oklahoma program. This guy is a really good safety who can get around the ball, who can make plays. And I think with Alex Grinch's defense, you add some like real legit playmakers to that. This is going to be dangerous when you play Oklahoma.
Yeah, I think is the number 1 Oklahoma as well?
Yeah.
Is your number 1 Oklahoma?
No, it's not.
Okay, Eric Gray's the one that's gotten far more attention, I think, this offseason.
And I left him off because of that, I think, yeah.
Okay, yeah, that's fair enough. But, yeah, Eric Gray's the one, the running back who's gotten the most attention. I haven't really read a lot about Key Lawrence. I don't have much of an opinion on him. I saw him, a little bit at Tennessee. But, honestly, I haven't really just read or heard much about him, so I don't have a great take on this.
And part of the reason I took Eric Gray off is, look, he's coming back in. Kennedy Brooks is coming back too. They're loaded at running back, and Eric Gray's probably going to be fantastic, and so is Kennedy Brooks. But to me, it's like, who has the bigger impact?
No, I think Kennedy Brooks is definitely flying under the radar. I think he's going to be back with just a force this season, and I was really surprised he even came back. When a lot of guys announced, like, we're sitting out this year because of COVID or whatever, I just assumed that, like, okay, so what you're really doing is you're getting ready for the draft, but you're just leaving the door open. But Kennedy Brooks came back, and I was surprised by that. So I think, yeah, Oklahoma, there's a lot of people between the addition of Lawrence and then Gray and then Brooks. You got Rattler back, Marvin Mims back. I mean, yeah, there's a lot of reasons to like the Sooners this year.
Yeah, and number 1, Eric Gilbert.
Yeah.
Wide receiver, tight end, whatever he is at Georgia. This is a playmaker Georgia hasn't had in a little bit, and they've already got another good tight end. And he was LSU, and then he wanted to go to Florida, and then go to Georgia. So really the only thing I think Eric Gilbert has to get through is his own head and focus on being a Georgia Bulldog, and I think he's going to be a dominant Kyle Pitts type player.
Yeah, no, that's a weird one to see somebody going from LSU to Georgia in conference like that.
After a brief stop at Florida.
Oh, yeah, that's right, yeah. I mean, yeah, that's strange. It's super strange, but no, he's a dude, and I'm sure Georgia's going to get a lot of usage out of him. So definitely agree with him being, the most impactful transfer this offseason. I'm surprised you didn't mention Mackenzie Milton at Florida State.
We'll see. We'll see. Here's the thing. He
worried about his health or something.
Yeah, and I think he'll be very impactful. But they also have Jordan Travis, who's going to play. I mean, he's going to play a lot, I would think, because he's an unreal playmaker. He's just not a quarterback necessarily yet. So
I'd say too. I also think Tanner Mordecai at SMU is going to probably be pretty good. Now, I'm not saying he's on the level of these guys per se, but I do think in a Sonny Dykes offense, you saw Shane Buechele have a lot of success. Tanner's been waiting now for a while to be like a starter. And probably he's not going to be playing. I mean, the competition is not going to be all that different, but SMU is probably more fitting for him than Oklahoma was, if that makes sense. But there's so many other names, and you only had to do 5. But like that's just how wild the transfer portal is we could have made like a top 15 list and had like legitimately 15 guys who will be impactful this year, and probably more than that. That's the wild nature of the transfer portal.
Yeah. All right. Thanks to Craig Smoak. Thanks to Jack Armstrong and Hayden. Thank you to John Kurtz and Mickey Spagnola, all of you who called on the chat, watched, listened, whatever you did today. This is Sigum 365 Radio. We're back tomorrow. Have a great night, everybody.
Ideal MRI is a small family business right here in Central Texas. We're open to support you while lowering the cost of healthcare bills. When you need an MRI, ask your doctor for an Ideal MRI. Visit us at idealmri.com or call us at 833-IDEAL-MRI.
After my first car accident, I feared the biggest damage would be to my wallet. I expected a mountain of bills and a long, drawn-out process. But my Texas Farm Bureau insurance agent was there when I needed her and helped me get back on my feet and in my car in no time. Instead of a hassle, I got reassurance and a quick recovery.
Stop by and see our agents at one of our 3 McLennan County locations.
Coverage and discounts are subject to qualifications and policy terms and may vary by situation.
Stepping into the boots of a U.S. Army officer can add confidence and leadership skills to your son or daughter's career path. See all the things they can achieve in our boots at GoArmy.com. U.S. Army Waco Recruiting Company, 254-598-8131 or 254-776-1543.
Let Camille Johnson Realtors guide you seamlessly through the process of buying your dream home or selling your current one. Commercial, farm and ranch, or residential, Camille Johnson Realtors can smoothly and successfully lead you through any transaction. With a team of 28 experienced agents who are excited about serving you, Camille Johnson Realtors services the entire greater Waco area. If you're in the market to buy or sell, contact Camille Johnson Realtors, 104 Midway Center in Woodway, or find them online at www.camillejohnson.com. Camille Johnson Realtors, elegant, charming, warm. Welcome home.
One size fits all. That may be all right for an adjustable belt or cheap sunglasses, but when it comes to your financial needs, no one wants a one-size-fits-all strategy. Cam Heathcott, your Edward Jones financial advisor, knows that his most important goals are yours. That's why he takes the time to understand your needs. Knowing you, that's how Edward Jones makes sense of investing. Cam Heathcott, covering Conroe and Houston, 936-756-7717 or cam.heathcott@edwardjones.com. Edward Jones, member SIPC.
Did you know that 1 out of every 4 men have symptomatic low levels of testosterone and don't even know it? And if you think you're too young to worry about it, guess again. Low T levels can make you feel tired and grumpy, cause weight gain, and wreak havoc on your sexual desire and performance. Petty Clinic Low T can set up same-day blood screening and results, so if you're tired of being tired, I challenge you to man up and Google search Low T Waco or go online pettycliniclowt.com. It's a private clinic with an atmosphere catering to men. Affordable, only $150 a month, includes lab work, office consultation, testosterone injections, follow-up visits compared to $395 a month in Dallas or Austin, and you don't have to fight the traffic. Petty Clinic Low T is board-certified physician consultations, will provide the best form of brand-strength testosterone available. Contact Petty Clinic Low T today, just off Highway 84 and Old Hewitt Drive in Woodway. Petty Clinic Low T, helping men become the high-performance men they deserve to be. PettyClinicLowT.com or Google search Low T Waco.